we are absent one of our members. Otherwise, the rest of us are here. The next item is the approval of minutes from the, well, before I do that, I should say that when we get to the agenda items, and I'll try to do this again in case people are tuning in late. If you are watching and have logged in by Zoom, if you, when we get to the item that you are interested in making a comment, if you would raise your hand, Town Manager Bill Shane will see that, and we will get you onto the screen here in the room. And hopefully everybody that's interested has seen the Zoom link. It is on the town website. I'm not going to read it. It's too hard to read a link, but it is there if you need to look it up. So the next item is approval of minutes for the February 16th, 2021 regular meeting and the February 23rd and March 16th, 2021 workshop meetings. I do have just one minor question, I think, for Carla. The chart that we had, which is page 11 of the February 16th, it's the chart with the conditions for minor staff, major staff, and so forth. The last item, the site preparation, we have in two of the columns, we have less than 5 acres on the left column. On the right column, we have greater than 5 acres. So there's really, that may never happen. There's what happens if it's 5 acres. So it seems like the right column should just read 5 acres or greater. Okay. To include that possibility. So anyone with, on any of the minutes, any comments, corrections? Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to, do you want to do all three together?
I think we can do that. It's one of the, just
Make a motion to accept the minutes as provided for February 16, 2021, February 23rd, 2021, and March 16, 2021.
I second it.
Okay, there's a second. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. So all unanimous. The next item is a staff site plan approval for a registered caregiver facility to be located at 212 Gray Road as shown on Tax Assessor Map U20, Lot 64 in the Village Center Commercial zoning. And I'll turn it over to Carla if you have any comments. I have one question when we get there.
Okay. So this is a registered caregiver facility, which might be unclear to a lot of people what that means, and it's actually,
Closer to the mic.
thank you. It's actually a registered caregiver under state law for dispensing medical marijuana. That's what that is. And this is the third application, site plan review we've had for that. The former board barn got staff approval to have one there, and there's another new structure that's 2 buildings down from the board barn that was also approved, and now this one. This one is, if any of you recall where the antique shop used to be across from Skillins, it's in that building there. So that's what that is. Question?
Okay. Yeah, the only question I had is that somewhere it mentioned that nobody ever goes into the building as they come out to the car.
Yeah.
So that, I didn't realize what the business was, so it sounded like a COVID testing site, which
Oh, I see.
obviously wouldn't make sense. So
No.
I just had that inquiry. Thank you, Carla. Any other comments from the board? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go
Hi,
ahead, Ann.
sorry. I'm a little puzzled. Will they never go into the building? Will people never go into the building, or is this?
That is what their application states, and if they do
Yeah.
anything different than that, they are supposed to let us know. So if I hear that people are going in, I will follow up with them.
Oh,
But,
okay.
that's how they're doing it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Any others? All right, thank you, Carla. So the first hearing, item number 1, public hearing for a sketch plan review for 14-lot major subdivision, Blanchard Oaks, on, I believe, what should be 44.15, not 51.78. I think that's the total acreage, and I think that, let me look at.
The open space.
Yeah, I think that includes what the
Oh, and
McCormicks
the
have retained. Anyway, that,
Lot A.
yeah, just so that we're accurate, I think it's 44.15. Parcel located at 365 Blanchard Road Extension, Tax Assessor Map R08, Lot 68A. Applicant owner is Chris Axelson, represented by Travis Letellier, PE Northeast Civil Solutions. And I believe, Carla, they will be calling in by Zoom. But could you address, before we do that, the new ordinance states that we don't do sketch plan review for conservation subdivisions, which this is labeled as a sketch plan review, which we had discussed at the workshop. But could you just clarify that for us?
Sure. So prior to the subdivision ordinance being amended to have the conservation subdivision provisions included, there was a step called sketch plan review for major subdivisions. And when the conservation subdivision ordinance went into effect, as you know, the planning board had what's called the planning board workshop in advance of them starting the formal process. Unfortunately, it wasn't noticed that we still kept that step of sketch plan in the ordinance. So the applicant called me and said, do I still need to come for the step? Because essentially the sketch plan review is exactly what we did in the planning board workshop, which is look at the parcel of land and decide which type of subdivision was best suited to it. So that's already been determined. It's going to be a conservation subdivision. So because the ordinance had not yet changed, I needed to put them on the agenda and go through this step.
Okay, so, and the only change I saw was that they're requesting that the free space be taken over by the town. Will that be discussed tonight, or are they looking for approval from either the board or the town to do that, or?
I think that might be a bit premature.
Okay.
I think they're still trying to understand the implications of how to do that, whether to do the land trust or the town,
Okay,
or possibly still keep it as the homeowners association. So there's some upcoming meeting to talk about that.
okay, so what is the board's role tonight, given that we've gone, we recommended, the workshop,
Yeah.
the board recommended a conservation
I
subdivision?
think just reiterating that as a motion tonight.
Okay, so are we ready for somebody to Zoom, on Zoom or not?
Yeah, Travis is ready if you're ready.
I am, Bill, yes. Does anybody else, I'm sorry, Bill?
I have a question. What's new since the workshop is them wanting to give that 22 acres to the town? When is it time for us to go on record saying we're not crazy about land being turned over to the town, taken off the tax rolls? Is that now, or should that be when we do the review?
It's not now.
Okay,
We
all
really
right.
haven't formally started the review process.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
Paul?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I have a question too. Well, maybe this is for discussion later, but I thought they did a very good job in presenting their sketch plan. It was very complete. It gave us a lot of information. Do we anticipate that that will always be the case?
You mean with other projects that we would
Right.
get more information at sketch plan than we got at the planning board workshop?
Yeah,
Shouldn't be.
okay,
Because what we asked for in sketch plan seems
Okay.
actually to be less than what we asked for
okay,
with the planning board workshop.
okay. Then what's next for them? They will still have to come and do a preliminary
That's right.
plan, correct?
So it's a major
And-
subdivision, it's
Okay.
2 approvals, preliminary approval, and then final approval.
Okay.
That's
Yeah,
what-
so I think this is an appropriate change for this situation.
Thank you. Any others? Okay. Well, thank you.
Travis, if you're ready, you can start with your presentation. If you'd like to share your screen, go for it.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, let me, so essentially, like Carla was saying, that this is more of a redundant meeting, for this situation because we were at workshop last month. The plan hasn't really changed at all, since that last plan, but, well, I can give you an update on the open space. Further discussion with the applicant, we are leaning towards keeping the open space as homeowner association land, rather than trying to turn it over to the town. So that's where we're going to be headed for, with our preliminary submission for next month's meeting. But other than that, it's pretty much exactly the same as we were talking about last month. So. In addition, since the workshop, Chris and Mandy Axelson have purchased the property, have actually gone ahead with the purchase of the property. So they do own it now, and will be coming in under the LLC that they purchased it under. Schooner Ventures will be the applicant for the preliminary plan going forward. So other than that, I can open up to any questions if you want to talk about any of the potential waivers we might be asking for, or I can answer any questions you might have about the possible subdivision.
Okay, thank you, Travis. Does anyone have a question at this time? Oh, Jason.
Aside from the ownership of the open space, would the applicant be open to trails and public access to that space?
I think that, so they're looking to develop the road and then sell the lots. So that will be up to the future homeowners association, which I'm not sure. I can't speak. I can't speak for them, the future owners of these lots. But I can't see why not. But I don't know how to answer that for sure.
That would be good information to have at the next step. Any other questions or comments? No. Thank you, Travis. Thank you very much. So at
Do I
this,
just stop sharing my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
thank you. So at this point, maybe a motion to reiterate what we decided at the last meeting. Is that appropriate, Carla?
Christina's just mentioning that it was advertised as a public hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
we should
I'm sorry.
Open
Yeah, because we'd already done it, I forgot. So at this time would be a perfect time to open this for the public to make a comment. And if you'd go to the mic and just introduce yourself and your address.
Excellent. Am I allowed to take my mask off at the mic?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, thank you very much, members of the Planning Board, for taking into consideration the neighbors' feedback on this development. My name's
Could I get your name?
Yep, I was just about to say that. My
Okay.
name's Nicole Nevelis. I
thank
reside
you.
at 354 Blanchard Road Extension. I've lived there for approximately the past 10 years. And I want to start by saying I am in the support of the development of this neighborhood, Blanchard Oaks. There's also another neighborhood going in, a very small 3-lot subdivision. And we also have coming up the use of the Chamberlain Fairgrounds for racing, which is another effort that I also support. The combination of these three things does raise a couple of concerns for me in regards to the traffic on Blanchard Road Extension. And then in regards to the additional development in the neighborhood itself, there's the fire pond, and then the overall neighborhood itself has concerns with that and the aquifer. So I'll just start with the concerns that that will take me least to cover. Because traffic is something I have a ton of passion around on that road as a direct resident on it. In the fire pond, we have, we've come together in past years when this same parcel of land was up for development, and Mr. Shane had done the research and provided some information that a study had been done that fire pond was adequate. In the past 4 years, though, we've had droughts within the area, and that fire pond has gone down significantly in those periods. Last year, it was so dry, 3/4 of the pond was down. And there's no way that pond would have sustained more than one fire in that neighborhood. And by the time we got rain, it wouldn't have been enough to fill things up. So any firefighter coming down would have had to go to the corner of Skillen and Blanchard, where the closest municipal fire hydrant is, to put out a fire. And we all know that time can equal lives. So that's one of my concerns. Second, the aquifer always tends to come up when it comes to that neighborhood. We heard it when there was the potential to move the town sand lot and the brush lot there. I don't know when the last time we did a study on the aquifer and the health of it, but my expertise is in forecasting and scheduling and looking at variance to forecast. So I know dynamics change. What was relevant 10 years ago, new factors can come in and make that adjustment. And one of our neighbors, Lisa Dixon Churchill, her expertise is in geology, and she did send a letter to Bill Shane requesting that we have a study be done, and I just want to go on record for supporting that. So finally, the traffic. I've got a lot of passion around this one, and I also want to say it really is about impact and quality of life. And I'm a born and bred Boston driver, so if I'm up here complaining about traffic, it definitely has nothing to do with being an overly worrisome neighbor. In the past 10 years that I've lived here, it's the traffic, what should be a rural road that should be quiet and you would think people can walk around safely, it has really increased to a very hazardous point. And I want to cite a couple of examples. First off, and I want to say I walk my dogs and I run here on a regular basis. I'm a marathon trainer, so my observational data collection is pretty frequent. Other neighbors have brought this and have complained about this as well. We have brought it up to the police department, but as you all know, they've only got so much scalability across such a broad area. So last summer, a cyclist and I were almost hit at the where the dirt road of Blanchard comes in and West Branch. And it was because what seems to happen is because there's no stop sign from Skillen at all going to the dirt road, it's become a nice little racetrack for some neighbors with lead feet, service delivery drivers like UPS, other servicers like landscapers, construction vehicles, and the police have told me that as an unmarked road should be 25 miles an hour. I know darn well that people are going well above that going down the road. And so when you have neighbors that are walking around with their dogs, with their children, and you've got to jump out of the way because somebody wants to use it as their personal racetrack, that's definitely a concern. This person, by the way, that was driving so fast, the bicyclist was just simply turning around in the dirt road, and they were coming so fast that they swerved to miss her. I was on the opposite side of the road by the stop sign in the dirt. His overcorrection nearly hit me. He overcorrected and then smashed into the neighbor's mailbox where their toddler was just checking the mail not even 5 minutes before. You would think that, that might scare a person into maybe slowing down a bit. As I've said, we see the service vehicles, etc. So the lack of that stop sign, like I mentioned, makes it that a speed strip. Now, here's the deal. We're going to have an increase of 20 new homes, 17 in Blanchard Oaks and 3 at the end of the extension. That's 40 more cars going up and down the road, and 20 probably, because they'll each probably have a car, right? So you're going to have 40 cars, more people engaging with service providers. So that's going to very much amplify the already problematic situation we have. Also, the driveway coming out of Blanchard Oaks is between my driveway and it's between West Branch. Is that West Stonewall? So what's going to happen is that 34 cars coming out of that street, turning with their headlights, right? Thankfully, there's woods there, but that's lights that's going to start coming into my neighbor's house right on the corner of West Branch, and it's going to shine into my light. I left the suburbs because I didn't want to deal with the traffic and the noise. I wanted to be in the peace in the woods. But my concern is that you have a staggered road. You have Stonewall here, but then you see that this proposed exit is right here. I mean, it would seem to make more sense to have a four-way stop with the roads coming together versus, creating a potential disaster because you have people coming out of there. And it's also going to be, personally, it's just going to be a pitta for me to get in and out of my own driveway now in the morning and at night. So the other areas with the dead end sign, which is far back and nobody sees it's a dead end for the road until after it's too late. And what happens is people drive in, they realize it's a dead end, and they go as fast as they can out of the road because, oh my gosh, they're pissed off, they went down a dead end. Now, this is problematic because during apple season and fair time, right? Because you have more people coming in to go to the apple orchards, you got more people coming in to go to the fair. So that makes it a challenge. And by the way, as we were driving here, I checked, I'm like, there is not even a sign on the corner of Skillen and Blanchard that says fairgrounds that way. So it's so what's going to happen with the racing now, on top of that, you're going to have people who are going to follow their GPS coming from up north. They're going to go down to Skillen, and that partial group, they're going to end up having that same issue where, oops, went the wrong direction. Let me go speeding like the devil outside of Blanchard Road Extension. So my ask of the town and the planning committee is really, as we're looking to develop more, is as part of this to please consider putting some traffic calming measures in place and clear visuals about the dead end and the fairground locations. The cost of doing this and maybe the inconvenience of time for someone to having to stop for a few moments is far less than that of a human life. Because I've heard it before not from this planning committee, but I hear it from people like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to stop a couple minutes for a stop sign, or, it'll take a few minutes. So I'm going to use a very extreme example here, but I think we all remember the debacle in the late 70s, early 80s with the Ford Pinto, in which their actuaries like, well, the cost isn't going to be too much. And, the cost to make the change they saw was far, far greater than how they valued a human life. So having spent a lot of times on the road to Blanchard Road Extension, I can tell you I've seen enough over the years that it's going to get to the point that the cost is going to be a human life if we don't do something with this development. Now, as I mentioned, I came to Cumberland with my husband to escape the traffic and the noise of Boston. I don't express these concerns without having seen them in my past. I grew up on the South Shore, 30 miles outside Boston, in the Brockton, Massachusetts area, the Bridgewaters to be specific. And in the early 1990s to mid-90s, very pastoral, just like Cumberland, there was a building boom. And all the farmland got sold off. And what used to take 5 minutes to get across town turned into 15 minutes to get across town. What used to be 10 minutes to get to the highway turned to 30 minutes to get to the highway. What turned into maybe 15 minutes to get to Boston, and yes, speeding excessively, turned into 30 minutes, and there wasn't any room for it. The volume that comes in with population change and the changes can very much take a nice, quaint little town, and the added traffic, if you don't catch up to it now, it can become very problematic 5 to 10 years out. So having lived through that, I just want to offer that insight up to the council. I know that tonight a lot of the focus was just on looking at the plan, but I think that this has a very big impact of adding this residencies along with the added traffic from the fairgrounds we'd like to protect our way of life and the lives of the people in our groups. So I want to thank each of you for taking the time. I know I probably went on a little bit longer, but I really appreciate that you gave us a platform for our voices to be heard in the neighborhood. And I want to thank each of you for your service to our town.
Thank you very much. And just a I'll make a brief comment. Many of the things you talked about, we can do nothing about, but a few things we can. Certainly, as part of the next step, there'll be a water study, hydrological study. There'll be a traffic study, and we certainly can talk and hopefully encourage someone to improve the signage. I'm very familiar with that area. If people come in Skillen and turn right, then it won't affect the extension, because the extension's a good 200-300 yards further north, I guess. So anyway, much of what you discussed is beyond our control, but some of it we will be discussing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I know since Bill is here tonight as a representative of the town and as manager, he can hopefully take the things that you can't address in your process and bring it back to the appropriate people.
Thank you. So the public hearing is still open for anyone else. Does anyone else have any comments? I will check with Bill. Are there any hands? Again, if you are interested, I'll wait a little bit to see if anyone's interested in making a comment on the Zoom meeting. No?
I see a hand raised.
We do.
Okay,
Shelton Waltrip.
okay.
Shelton, go ahead. You are ready to go.
Shelton.
Hey, thank you very much. I spoke last time, and I just wanted to mention, again, my own concern with traffic, and that I agree with the last presenter. As the first house on the left, which is where everyone turns around who accidentally goes onto Blanchard Road Extension not meaning to, I'm very concerned about the fact there is not a sign indicating that Blanchard Extension is a dead end, that there's no outlet, and would also appreciate consideration for some kind of speed bump or stop sign there to be reconsidered, much as there is near Valhalla. Thank you.
Shelton, thank you very much. If anyone else is interested in making a comment, please raise your hand.
I don't see it.
We're good? Okay. All right, at this time, then I will close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for either comments or a motion. Jason?
Do we have the ability to, as part of this project, to add speed bumps on Greeley Road Extension?
Planning board doesn't, but.
Recommend it. You could recommend it to the council that they basically, what we've typically done with speed bumps, Bill Shane, town manager, is held neighborhood meetings, and it's extremely divisive. Some folks definitely want them, and some people do not want to see them at all. So that's why we've basically held more of a neighborhood meeting when those came up. And there's probably, I think, 5 neighborhoods in town right now that have them.
Thank you, Bill.
And
Jason?
Carla, do you have comments about the comment about making it a 4-way instead of having them offset?
I do. I'm looking at the plan.
They cannot
How
hear you
close?
at all. They cannot hear you at all.
I'm gonna break the cord. Is this okay?
Much better.
Better.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, if you look at the plan, you'll see that in order for those two drives to align across from each other, you'd be going right through a significant vernal pool. So that's really, in this particular case, would be difficult to do. The other point I wanted to make or ask Travis about was, I believe they're planning to sprinkle the homes. Is that correct? Have sprinklers?
Yes, we aren't looking to take advantage of the fire pond across the street. We're going to be requiring individual sprinkler systems for each new home on the property, so.
Okay.
Which means tanks would be charged ahead of time?
Typically how they're done, but the fire chief will be reviewing the fire
Yeah, I
protection
think
plan.
they'll have an individual tank with a pump and a sprinkler system in each home, so.
Okay, thank you. Any others? So, motion to continue,
So it's not an approval, right? Or just-
I guess. I mean, this, we've already approved this as a
The motion,
conservation
is the motion in
subdivision.
order to advance this to the site plan review? Is that an appropriate step to take,
Or to the preliminary?
to the preliminary review?
I'm sorry, I was listening to
Well,
Christina when you said,
We
what
already
was your
said, we
question?
already said we were gonna talk about it later. How do we get it to that point? Do we make a motion that we advance it to the,
You don't need to do that. That will automatically happen.
don't I do anything with this?
So I think, how about a show of hands that who agrees that we want to continue with this development as a conservation subdivision? All of those in favor of that? Because I think we've already officially made had a motion approved.
Yes.
So I think, Travis, we're all set with that. We look forward to the next step. And I'm sure you overheard the discussion, the public discussion as well as ours. So thank you again. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. All right, so the agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. It's a site plan review for construction of a 11,900 square foot indoor boat storage building on Lot B at 191 Middle Road, as shown on Tax Assessor Map R02, Lot 27A in the Rural Industrial Zoning District. The applicant owner at 199 Middle Road LLC, represented by Norman Chamberlain II, PE Walsh Engineering Associates. So where is Norman here?
He is ready when you are, and is Norman making the presentation tonight?
That's where it says Norman's the representative.
Okay,
Yeah.
Norman,
Yes.
you're ready to share your screen if you're ready to go.
Okay. So this was an application that was approved by the Cumberland Planning Board back in 2019. This is the 199 and 191 Middle Road. And so the application 2 years ago was for this second building. We have modified that slightly. We've moved the building outside of what appears to be a New England telephone easement. And in doing so, it kind of pushed us into the wetlands here a little bit. But it did reduce the amount of impervious surface by 419 square feet. So the development before you is a little less aggressive than it was 2 years ago. With the wetland impacts, we have some here and we have some there. These were actually done 2 years ago. Nobody realized it, but there was this contour line that kind of lined right up with the edge of gravel. And so we're going to be going to the Army Corps of Engineers with a self-verification notification to account for these impacts, which are, I think, on the order of a couple 3,000 square feet. They're under the 4,300 square feet allowed by DEP. We are proposing some lighting on the building. This was approved 2 years ago, except for the one on this side of the building. we've developed this photometric plan. These are wall-mounted LED lights that are full cutoff. So they're only spreading light out a little bit. This is a 0.5 foot candle line out here. So in between the buildings, we have a fair amount, but on the ends, it's just security. And even though we have an egress door on this side, we're not proposing a light over this door. That is pretty much all we have. It's, like I said, it's a re-approval of what was done a couple of years ago. And I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Norman. Before I open it to the board, Carla, you had several in your memo from April 16th. There were several comments. Do you want to reiterate any of those? You had a comment about lighting and about the town engineer review and so forth. Are you good with?
I'm good with all those things.
With everything we have here? Okay, thank you. Norman, I have one question, and there's several times it's reiterated there's no hazardous material being stored, but you're storing boats, and of course, many boats, bow riders even have 25 to bigger gallon fuel tanks inside. Is that an issue at all for the fire department or anyone in terms of how much gasoline you're storing that's within boats, that's in the building?
I'm not aware of that problem or issue. I don't know if Steve Arnold is on the call here. Yeah, he is. Maybe, yeah, he's got his hand raised. Maybe he can address that.
Okay, we can, if
Steve is the applicant for Yarmouth Boat Yards.
right. Yeah, he was at the last meetings we had.
Steve, go ahead if you can address that.
It hasn't never been an issue with any buildings that I've had. It's a great question. But you know, they're very safe. And there's never been an issue with anything I've ever done in 20 years.
Okay, and the fire department's aware of that, I presume?
Yeah, I would think so. We're storing boats inside the building. It's
Okay,
the
thank you.
same thing they're doing in the building next door.
Yeah, I just find it a little incongruous that saying there's no hazardous material stored within the building, but it could be many gallons of gasoline. Okay, so that's my question or thought at this time. Jason?
I remember this from 2019, and there was a fair amount of public comment on it at that time. I'm glad to see that there's no lights on the south side, because I can remember that was one of the issues that neighbors had. The other concerns that, if I remember right, were parking boats, and at the time, the applicant had said that they would be okay sort of storing the boats out behind the building, and there wouldn't be a lot of boats not in the buildings out front that were viewable to the road. And then the other comment I recall was about work being done in the new building and potentially noise associated with that work. So can you confirm that those things are still sort of the same and there won't be noisy work being done in that building and it's just storage?
Yeah, I can address that. Any work is going to be cleaning and buffing hulls. Nothing mechanical goes on in that building. And as far as the boats outside the buildings, I think we agreed on a number of 15 or 16 once the second building goes in. So yeah, we'll certainly adhere to that.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, Norman, Steve, regarding the boat storage, the outdoor boat storage, I think there were, 15, 25-foot maximum length boats. Is that shown on the diagram as those lines in the back? Is that what those lines are?
If I can show my screen, the plan that was sent to the board was a markup that was supposed to look more like this. So if you can see down here at the ends of the two buildings, we're showing 4 spaces over here, we've got 4 over there, and then we've got 11 others. So we can have up to, I'm sorry, not 11, but my math isn't good tonight. We have a total of 15 spaces here down at this end of the buildings. So that's where that outside storage would occur.
Okay, thank you. Other questions?
I'd like to make a statement before you go to the public
Yeah,
hearing.
Bill, go ahead, yeah.
I live on Friar Lane, and I'm outside of the area that's within the notifying the abutters by one house. I have been getting questions for people on Friar Lane, and because I'm in the association, and they know I'm on the board, and my reply to them has been, I can't comment because I'm on the board. And so I just wanted, I don't think I have a conflict, but I want to bring that out there. I think I can judge accordingly.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Chairman, where Mr. Kinney presented you with a conflict, the board has to vote if he has a conflict, not you. Sorry.
Okay.
So I think it's appropriate
Okay.
just to take a quick vote, just to basically make sure the board is comfortable with that.
So any discussion on that before we vote on whether or not Bill has a conflict that is critical?
I apologize. I was distracted. Could you repeat that, Bill?
Yes, I live on one house outside of the area that would be required to be notified by the abutters, which happens to be on Friar Lane. There's an association with that development. I've been seeing email traffic because of the association. I have not responded to the emails, and the people that have approached me on my walks have asked me about it, and I said I can't comment because I'm on the planning board, and it wouldn't be appropriate. So I don't think I have a conflict, but I just wanted to make that known to the people on Friar Lane and in that area, and also the board.
You feel comfortable with it?
Yes, I don't have a problem with it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all of those who feel that Bill has a conflict and should not be involved with this decision, please raise your hand. Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Bill, for bringing that up.
You're welcome.
So Jason was bothered by my interruption. There's a point from Walsh Engineering that I need to know if this is pertinent. It says, because of the reduction in impervious area, we're requesting a waiver from preparing an updated drainage analysis. So is that still, is one required? Does this need a waiver is really what I'm asking.
That might be a good idea, to do it as
Okay.
a waiver. The increase in impervious surface was so little, and with, oh, man. I'm so sorry. Maybe I need one of those lapels.
Don't we all?
Boom mic.
What?
A boom mic right over
Boom
the top
mic.
of you.
Yes. It's a judgment call with this little difference in impervious surface. I could have sent it out for the peer review engineer to look at it and say there's not going to be any impact on abutting properties because the increase at the property line's not, there's no significant increase. So I think it's fine the way it is. If you wanted to address it through a waiver for that information, you could do that.
Okay, thank you, just so that we know when the motion comes.
Okay.
Other comments or questions by the board before we go to the public hearing? None? Okay, I will then open the public hearing for comment. Yes, sir. If you would, if you could go up to the mic and just introduce yourself and, yeah, and your relationship.
My name is Dale Spignardi. I live at 189 Biddle Road, which is the property most affected by this industrial park next to me. This is the third time I've come here for this. I moved here 16 years ago, kind of similar to this lady. I work 40 minutes from town, and I'm in a business where I have to talk to people all day long, and it's just nice to get here and not know anybody and have my own little privacy. I knew about the little business next door, the excavating sales company. Wasn't a big deal to me. I had power lines on one side. I had a little business that closed at 5. Well, if anybody was here 6 years ago, they decided to sell, it was Anderson at the time, and put in a 3 business property Okay, but then they had to sell off the lot to make it work. So there was always a dispute about the property line. I had met with Titcom, and because I, on one Sunday, heard bulldozers bulldozing bushes and small trees, what I thought was on my property. So I went over and confronted the guy, and he said, I'm just doing what I was told. They told me to come in and bulldoze these things. So immediately I got a lawyer and, went through the whole thing. And the bottom line on it is that there was gonna be one building, a boat storage building. It wasn't gonna really affect me. It wasn't worth a big fight with lawyers and all that sort of thing. Just one building. It was not gonna be any work at night, any work inside. So we just kind of left it there. 2 years later, well, now we want another building. So I come back to you guys, well, maybe only one or two of you were here, and the gentleman was very nice who runs the company. And I said, just don't put any lights on the side of that building, because the previous building was supposed to be motion detectors. And for 7 months one winter, they were all wall packs, and they were on all night long for 7 months. It was like being next to Shaw's. I mean, I think I'm in, in a nice little spot, but I've got a full moon every night. So I finally contacted someone with the town, and they talked to the guy and they fixed it. So when this new thing came up, I said, okay, this is happening. We're turning Middle Road into an industrial park. So if you want to put the building, do two things for me. Don't put the wall pack on the thing, because now you've tilted the building that's directly facing my house. And don't cut any more vegetation, please. It's a swamp back there, and, the water's just gonna, continue to build up. So that was the deal. Now there's a thing, okay, it's 2 years later. We'd like to waive those conditions we did 2 years ago. We'd like to move the building. And I can tell you from the past 2 years, and I brought a bunch of pictures, which I'd be happy to get to Carla, that you could look at. I had a huge tree that's probably 50 years old, there's 3 of them, fell on my house this year. Just too much water. I mean, I've been there for 16 years. Why all of a sudden, now that this thing has been bulldozed over, all these new buildings, all this impervious stuff, why is my area filling up? Because there's a imaginary line in a swamp, doesn't mean that the water stops coming. And you guys ditched down Greeley Road, which is fine, but now it's just going on my property, and I've got pictures of 6 trees that have fallen down in 2 years because all the water's being pushed onto my lot, into the wetlands. So I'm concerned that they're gonna now put another big building, put more gravel, put more water into my property, and just make more trees fall down. And I don't think I should have to be the butt of that, quite frankly. So at a minimum, I'd like to continue to keep those 2 requirements that were done 2 years ago. No wall packs on the side of the building facing me, and no more cut. And he promised me, he said, we will not cut one piece of vegetation. I guarantee you, there's gonna be cutting, and, you can't put another building up without moving some stuff around. So that's kind of the points I wanted to make. And the last point I wanted to make is that when I bought the property 16 years ago, of course you have a water test because I have a well. And I had iron and manganese, so I had pumps put in, Connecticut, whatever, nice stuff. All of a sudden in the last year, I got sulfur problem. Some days it's just the smell when I don't ever drink the water, but I brush my teeth, I smell a little. Now when I take a shower sometimes, it's like I'm in a sulfur bath. So I'm gonna have to go get a sulfur filter after 15 years. So something's going on somewhere. I don't know if it's because of all the additional runoff onto my property has finally hit my well line, or if it's because of the big salt thing that they put in the lot next to the boatyard, which is really the same thing, which for the first couple of years they were supposed to put it on a pad. They didn't put it on a pad. I think since then they may have, but there's things going on that just can't say, well, there's plenty of vegetation, there's plenty, I'm gonna go get a DP thing that says that we can fill in 4,000 square feet. So I understand this building's coming, it was approved 2 years ago, but let's just not forget about the citizens too. I mean, they have engineers, and they have the town manager and the tax collector that all want as many things to put there as they can. I need you guys, the citizens, to protect me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. Before anyone else gets up, Norman, any comments you would like to make regarding those comments?
Yeah, we are proposing to add some vegetation between the new building and Mr. Spagnardi's house. So I think we're looking to enhance that. We're not looking to cut any more trees, except a little bit up near the corner of the existing building where we're trying to widen out the road to be able to get boats down through there. So I think what we would find is that this will be enhanced over what exists today. As for the water, generally the water is running through that town easement that comes down to a culvert that's actually next to our property that crosses the railroad track. So I don't think our water would be impacting Mr. Spagnardi. Our stormwater would be impacting him in any way. It generally comes down to the railroad tracks, closer to behind the proposed building.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Yes, yeah, absolutely.
And you do have 2 people in the queue.
Okay, thank you, Bill.
It's not exactly just stormwater, it's a swamp. And as long as there's water in there and you fill half the swamp and cut the vegetation, it just fills up more in the other areas. So it's not stormwater impact, it's water that's pretty much always there that now instead of soaking up this piece of property, and I had walked that property long before there was ever a boatyard, just to see what was back there. And I'd be up to my knees in water. It was so wet in the ground there. So they've, of course, had to fill that. So does the water just stop coming? No, it just pushes over a little bit further. And as far as the trees, I saw that on the little map that they put some white pines. Are these real trees or are these 4-foot saplings or?
Well, they'll be small when they're installed.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
they'll grow.
if they're not any protection for 10 or 15 years, it's, you know, I've seen these things before. People say, oh, we're going to put vegetation. And you see these little saplings. And 20 years later, you come by and maybe they're this high. That doesn't block wall packs from my bedroom window. So, you know, that's why I'm saying we should continue to keep the things that were, you know, the simple things I asked for 2 years ago was just don't cut any more vegetation, don't fill up any more of the swamp, and don't put wall pack on that side. If you're not doing any work at night, why do you need to flood the lights on the side of that building? Doesn't make any sense.
Dale, is it the south side is what you're talking about?
Well, you know, I'm kind of on the south of Middle Road. So if you're facing their business, I'm on the right, the gray colonial. So what they're doing is they've got this building that kind of faces my backyard, where my bedrooms are and my deck. And if these lights are on and there's deer everywhere, of course they're going to go off all the time. But I had that 7-month period where they just dusk to dawn, you know, lights on. If they're not working at night, why do you need to flood the lights on that side?
So it's
I don't understand. Why did they agree to it 2 years ago, not to have those lights, and now we need a waiver to put them back on? What's going on?
We're not putting the lights on the south side. We're just,
I see a
that's what
waiver
we've said
that's
from the
saying that they
beginning.
don't want it, that they, you know.
That's what I'm confused about, because right now I don't think there's any lights drawn on the south side, but as I'm
The
looking.
south side meaning the one facing my house?
The longest side of the
So
building.
where are the lights that are new, that you need a waiver for? Because I'm looking at, Carla's, you know, looking for a waiver for putting walls, there's plenty of vegetation and buffer.
Okay, Dale, can you hang on just a minute? So the waiver I'd mentioned earlier, was, of course, for the drainage analysis, which we'll come back to.
Right.
Carla had made a comment regarding lighting, and I don't know, I don't remember seeing, so there's a waiver for exterior lighting. It says the building is well buffered from neighbors, and I don't have that diagram
And I
up on
brought you
my.
pictures to show you what it looks like, and the only buffering is the bushes that I'm letting growing in my
Yeah.
side.
But the lighting, if Carla can can you comment on what's proposed? Is there lighting on the side that Dale would be looking at?
So I think
I can put up the lighting plan, if you'd
when-
like.
that would be helpful. I think
Thank
what-
you,
this
if
is
you
one
could
of
do
the-
that, Norman.
The concerns I had when I was reviewing the plan. I had a conference call with Mr. Arnold, the owner, and with Mr. Chamberlain, and both agreed to remove that light, which is on the south side.
So if you see here on the existing building, there's 3 lights on the long side and 1 on each end. And we're proposing 3 lights on the new building, 2 down at this end that are pointing away from the neighbor, and nothing along this
Nothing,
side. So
okay,
the-
well, that's good then. I just,
the building itself is gonna shield from these existing lights over here, 2 of these lights.
yeah, well, you've had those lights on there forever anyway, so there's not much I can do about those, but at least they turned them off, which is good.
So Norman, while you have that diagram up, it looks like maybe what there are 9 or so plantings.
Yeah,
And
we're
could
looking
you,
to put some plantings in here,
over,
kind of enhance there. It's all a wetland, all in back there, so that a lot of this stuff isn't very tall.
oh, so over to the left, those black dots I'm looking at, those are
Yep.
not plantings?
Those
They are
planned.
trees.
Trees, but that you're putting in that you will
Correct.
be putting in? And your proposal is to have them be how high when you plant them?
They're generally 1 to 2 inches in diameters, 1.5, 2 inches in diameter. So a white pine would probably be about 6 feet tall. White pines grow very fast, so I would imagine that, in 4 or 5 years, they'd be, 12 feet tall.
Okay, thank you. Jason, did you have to follow up?
Dale, do you have concern about the light on the end of the new building, which is the
No.
east side of the building, which is toward your house, and then the applicant maybe can you let us know if that's on a motion detector as well?
Steve, do you want to put motion detectors on these? These
If
are
there's
mostly for
nothing
security.
on the left, I'm not terribly concerned if it's behind the building or,
Well, I think I'm looking at a map that shows your house.
yeah,
So basically, the corner of the new building sort of points at your house. So,
oh, the front
This would be on
corner?
the street side of the building, be on the end. And actually, there's an overhead door there where they access the inside of the building. So security in this area is obviously important.
It's hard for me to know now if that's gonna be, because they have moved the building forward some, so maybe it doesn't affect me. But
Yeah,
my
and I don't
question
mind,
is
this is
why do
Steve
we?
Arnold, I don't mind putting a motion detector on the back side of the building, the front side, the street side. They're all low level, they face down. There's a personnel door, so I probably would prefer to keep the low level on the street side intact. I'll put a motion on the back side of the building. And I do want to apologize for those lights being on. I knew there was a problem when I first heard there was a problem. I didn't think it was 7 months,
Yeah, it
but
was
if
the
it
whole
was, I
winter.
apologize. They malfunctioned. They were supposed to be motion detectors, and they never kicked off. So I do apologize for that. We weren't trying to keep you up at night.
Okay, well, if there's no lights on that whole left side, then I'm okay with that. But I'm still a little disturbed about we gotta cut a little bit of vegetation,
Yeah.
There isn't much left to cut.
So between the water, I mean, your main.
We're not looking at cutting much, just here on the street side, to be able to get into this building because we moved it closer to the road.
Okay. So just those plantings that you put in a couple years ago, or are you cutting into the 25-foot buffer that you have of trees now from my property?
We're looking at enhancing the buffer between the proposed building and your house, and also up alongside Middle Road to thicken that, so we screen the,
Yeah, I see
both
the little
buildings from the road
plantings
some
on the
more.
front of that too. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's much I can do. I just doing what I tried to do 2 years ago, try to give me a little protection from this
Yeah,
development.
and Dale, I mean, as board members, we are interested in making sure that the ordinance is followed, and And it seems to me, in trying to resolve any issues that people are willing to resolve easily. So it sounds like if the lighting issue is resolved,
Sounds to me like it is.
that now, to me, what I've heard is the drainage waiver, I don't see that we should be waivering the drainage analysis, given what you've said. And so we'll come back to that. And the other thing is then how, I have lots of white pines on my property, and 5 years is a long time to be waiting for buffering. And of course, if you plant it too large, they're more likely to die. We hear there's pros and cons to how big a tree you can plant, expect it to live. So I'm not sure how much anybody could do there. So,
But if they don't cut anymore, I'm growing as much bushes and trees on
Yeah.
my side of the property to protect me and not, so as long as they're not cutting trees on their end, I'll be okay. But what they're doing is now we're getting so much additional water into the swamp, the wetlands, that my trees are falling over.
yeah, okay.
So for them to say, oh, there's no impact on the water is untrue. I live there, I see it. I've got pictures that I'm gonna give to Carla showing every tree, including the tree that fell on my house.
Okay.
It
All right.
didn't get blown over, the roots just, there was nothing to hold it down anymore.
All right, thank you.
And one last question too, is they're saying that once they put in the new storage building, there'll only be 15 boats outside, that's the maximum, 15?
I believe
Correct.
that,
That's
Because
correct.
there's 60 right now.
I think, the request, I think, that went with the addition of a new building was 15,
Right.
up
But
to
I'm just
25
saying, I mean, I don't
feet.
know how many the boat building will hold,
The
but,
approval from the last, was it 2 years ago?
It was 2 years ago.
yeah.
And I forget the number of boats, but we approved outdoor storage for a certain number of boats.
Yes,
I
you
remember
did.
discussing it.
But I'm just saying, let's say that they say 15, and then next
15
year there's
additional.
30. Is there any repercussions for
Well, there
exceeding
is. I
that?
mean, we have we have an enforcement officer who enforces what's approved by the board.
Okay, all right. All right, well, thank you, and I appreciate that at least you're all kind of working with me again 2 years later on this.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sure I'll be back in 2 more years for when they change it to a cannabis facility,
All right, thank you. I know there's some people queued up. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to make comments? Okay, so
We have Catherine first and then Rika, so
Okay.
Catherine, if
Catherine, thank you.
Hi, can you
Hello.
hear me? Hello. So my name is Catherine Papke and I live on Friar Lane. And the only thing I wondered is, when you're showing the plans, can you point out on the road where like Middle Road is? Because Friar Lane comes right out where Mrs. Spignardi's house is right there. So like, I just want to see in comparison where they're actually putting the new building. I can't tell in relation because Friar Road's not marked on the plan you showed us.
no, it's Middle Road.
I mean, Middle Road, sorry.
So the new building would be right next to the existing boat storage building.
Right, can you show me the plan though and point it out on the plan? Like, can you put it on the screen?
Yes.
Thank you.
So here's Middle Road, and
Got
here's Mr. Spagnardi's house, and Friar Road is quite a bit down further. here.
Not really, we kind of come out and turn onto Mr. Like, as soon as I'm at the end of Friar, I see Mr. Spignardi's house. So it really isn't that far. But the other thing I'm wondering about too is, because he's right, Mrs. Spignardi's right, like, we live in the middle of Friar Lane, and we all have, there's wetlands running through all the way up and down Friar Lane. So I'm a little worried about where that water's going to be diverted to. I don't want the study to be diverted or to be waived personally, because we've also had our share of water problems. I can't tell you we would or wouldn't now. But anyways, The other thing I have a question of is the size of the trucks that come down Middle Road, because it's the cement, well, it's the blocks. What's the name of that company, Harry? So it's the, you know, the big cement company and then now the boat company. But like, if you're trying to get out of our road, a lot of times there's big tractor trailers trying to like back in or out or pull boats in and out of there, which are big boats. So I'm just wondering if there's any plan on the wear and tear on Middle Road compared to the traffic right there. Because it really is basically not set up for that type of commercial vehicle and weight.
Well, the trucks would be legal on the road trucks, so it wouldn't be anything that's overweight or outside of what's normally on the road. It's certainly going to be less than a cement truck. And, you know, this is boat storage, so basically in the fall, they'll be bringing the boats in and leaving them until the spring. So you're going to have a flurry of activity in the fall and a flurry in the spring, and very little activity outside of those times.
Well, I'm not trying to be difficult at all, but I kind of feel like you're being a little bit degrading to my question. I see a lot of activity and at all times of the year. And those are really wide tractor trailers that come down. I'm not saying they're not allowed to be on the road, but if you've ever been at the four-way at Tuttle and Middle, watching them try to make the turn sometimes, they are big. So, you know, I don't want to be taught, I'm not calling in to raise a problem. I'm calling to ask a question because quite frankly, Mr. Spignardi's right. Those businesses have affected the sound on my street, which is Fire Lane, and I am halfway down. And it's affected my traffic flow of when I come and go from, you know, the street on either end. So, you know, I just am asking a few questions. I'm not trying to cause a stir.
Okay, well, those may be for the other business. This is a separate lot, and the only thing they share is the entrance.
Okay.
See?
So, right, and I'm specifically just talking about the size of the boats, like when they bring them in to shrink wrap them and stuff like that. I'm not upset about that. I'm just saying that the noise has increased, and it is a lot more traffic coming in and out of Friar Lane, and I can hear it, and I'm halfway down Friar Lane, closer, like exactly between Middle Road and Tuttle Road, and I was just curious what was going in there. That's why I'm asking. I couldn't even.
Norman, what is the largest boat that would be stored at
Steve
either?
may be able to answer that.
Yeah,
better.
sure. Probably 34 feet would go in that building.
Yeah, okay, well,
Maybe 36 max, but you know, they're going to be majority of the boats 32 feet and down, so a lot of 28 footers, some 26 footers.
okay.
And Catherine, you did have a great question. And I will say, you know, we do have a lot of boats stored on the outside, right? The 60 odd boats out there. Those get cut back to 15. So you're not going to have a lot of traffic bringing 60 boats up there. It'll be 15. Now in the new building, we store an average of 30, 32 boats, depending on the length of the boats. So Norm was correct. We come in the fall, starting in late September, and we're done by November 1st, November 15th, filling the buildings, and then we're gone. If I have an employee up there, you know, I have one employee maybe go up there, do some like cleaning on the boats, but it'll be a ghost town middle November until right about now, you know, maybe April 15th, when we're going to take all the boats out. And we tow the boats with a F-150 or an F-550 and a hydro. So we're in and out pretty quick, and we don't have a lot of activity going on. It's going to be a ghost town majority of the months.
Okay, I was just curious because I didn't really know anything about it. So I'm fine. I just wanted a little information.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you.
Good, thank you very much. The next,
Rika has a question. or
Rika?
comment.
welcome.
Hi, yes. My name is Rika Morrill, and I live with my husband and our 2 children on Fire Lane, pretty much across the street and straight up the hill from the proposed development. And I wanted to voice my concern about the further industrial development on this section of Middle Road and the accompanying traffic and noise. I understand that this plan was approved in 2019, but in these unprecedented times, I think home is more important than ever, and I think there might be considerations that may not have been voiced in 2019. I grew up in Cumberland, and after the birth of my first child, who is now 7, my husband and I chose to move to Cumberland to raise our family, in large part because it is primarily a residential community. We moved to Friar Lane about just over a year ago in February 2020 because it is a quiet neighborhood. Fairly soon after we moved, I was surprised to be awoken at nighttime at 2:30 a.m., 4:30 a.m., 5:45 a.m. to the sounds of trucks backing up and unloading and the noise of daily work happening at and around the proposed area, the area proposed for further development. This morning, I was awoken at 4:45. And perhaps not all of the noise is caused by this particular applicant alone, the Yarmouth Boatyards, but it's an example of what happens when retail and industrial development is permitted this close to a residential zone. Cumberland is attractive specifically because of its reputation as a quiet residential community. Further industrial development this close to residences and residential neighborhoods, I don't believe is in line with those values. Moreover, this plan seems like a change to the otherwise mostly retail uses of this space abutting this lot. And I also question whether the scale of development is appropriate given its proximity to residences. I am concerned, like others, about the increased noise, trucks coming and going early in the morning, and the ongoing noise of operations, the impact on property value in the entire surrounding area, given the industrial development, and the aesthetic to the further and the aesthetic of further industrial development at and around 191 Middle Road. Although I don't support this, it does sound like it may be going forward, and I would ask that any building permitted this close to residences really be required to be pushed back as far as possible, and that there be robust landscape buffering on all sides towards houses and roads. But really, most importantly, that there are clear noise restrictions placed on the entire area, limiting the hours of operations, including deliveries to those businesses, to reasonable waking hours around, perhaps 6 to 8, and preferably not during the weekend. So thank you for your time and consideration.
Rika, thank you. And I'm curious, Norman or Steve, what are the hours you are normally either delivering or removing boats?
Generally 8 to 5. That wouldn't be us. I'm sensitive to those noise restrictions, but our trucks are quiet, F-150s, F-550s. When you haul a boat, there's not much sound at all, but those aren't our working hours. We don't, 8 o'clock is, my guys come in at 7:30, and they'll probably start hauling stuff at 8:30,
Okay.
and it'd be now for a few hours. I have a smaller yard, so I can't store all the boats. So we're talking 2 to 3 boats a day, maybe 4 boats, maybe some trailer boats. So we don't do a lot at once. We phase it in over the spring and summer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We have someone else, I believe. Oh, no, I thought there was another.
That was it. That was
Okay,
it.
all right,
Oh, that was Catherine.
all right. And there's no one, is there anyone else in the room that would like to make a comment? Okay, I will then close the public hearing, bring it back to the board for thoughts and comments, questions.
Mr. Chairman, can I interject
Bill,
one
yes.
thing? If you guys could bring back up that colored drawing for a second, the one that had the contours on it, that would be really helpful. When we talk about stormwater, remember, our ordinances deal with the rate of runoff on a
Right.
project, not the volume or the quantity.
Mhm.
And that is something I've kind of talked to this board about a lot of times. And that's kind of when you, and if we could zoom in a little bit so that you can see the corner of the house and see what those contours are, you'll notice the contour number 90, which is 90 feet of elevation. And then you'll notice as you go back toward the lot, in the rear of the lot, it's almost an 8-foot drop off from the house toward the back of this lot. That drainage was a huge problem area when Craig Wright came into us to develop the original lot. And he worked with the town to basically give us an entire easement across the back, which has improved that drainage all the way back up to Middle Road. The problem with drainage in general, town-wide, is that over the course of decades, the development in the town basically has had some impact on the groundwater table, because the more volume you put in, and if it can't get exhausted quickly, it basically has a tendency to saturate the ground and bring up the water table. And that's what we see in a lot of areas. When you look at this drawing right here, while it's a pretty drawing, I look at the green and I see the little what I call little bird prints in it. That's all wetlands. And I would tell you that it didn't stop at the property line in the past. It basically extended probably all the way to Middle Road at one time. So those soils are scantic soils, which are really not great soils, and they don't drain very well, and they can basically absorb and hold a lot of water. So the drainage improvements that we saw toward the back really did help, but not to the extent that would lower that water table enough for those residents to get relief. And that's going to be an issue town-wide. But from a stormwater standpoint, everything drains to the back of the lot. So it's difficult for me to say that a stormwater analysis, other than it's going to tell you that, maybe it tweaked up a 0.1 or 0.2 in cubic feet per second, which is not going to make much of a difference to any of these homes at any
Well,
area.
let me ask you this, Bill, not being an engineer, the literature we have, the proposal talks about drainage analysis. And I know from owning homes that, to me, that's, maybe ultimately it's stormwater, but drainage doesn't have to be regarding or related to stormwater. So in your mind, there is no distinction between a drainage analysis to see if somehow water flow direction or something could be improved versus a general, quote, stormwater analysis?
We're talking about two types of water: groundwater
Yeah.
under the surface
Mhm.
and stormwater on the surface that's basically created by runoff is typically what we control. If we had some type of retention or detention pond that was very close to the neighbor's property, I would have said, you know what, there might be a possibility that water is being held back and raising the water table near his foundation, causing problems. But you're seeing sheet flow basically all across there, and you've got homes that are surrounded by wetlands that are retaining basically 10 times the water of their weight. I mean, it's amazing how much water those wetlands will retain. So no matter what we do on this property, outside of trying to drain the wetlands, which would require deep pumps and would be semi-illegal, we really couldn't do a lot more. I think what they have proposed, the sheet flow to the back of the lot, to basically let it filter through the wetlands and get into the drainage system that we put in probably 5 to 7 years ago, I think is the best solution that we have, and not detaining the water on the site, which would not be a good thing for this area of town.
Okay, thank you.
And Bill, if I could summarize what we're actually requesting is that in 2019, a drainage study was performed on this lot and the adjacent lot, and it showed that there was no increase in stormwater runoff from the properties. What we are requesting is, because we have reduced the amount of impervious surface by 419 square feet, that we're asking that we not have to update that study. Not that it's an expensive thing, but it would basically show the same answer as was performed or proposed to the town back in 2019.
All right, thank you. The board can consider that. Jason?
So you had to move the building toward the east, towards the road because of the telephone company easement. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so, but the building stayed the same size, so you're changing kind of where you impede onto the wetlands, right? Is that correct?
We're not impeding, let me back up. Yes, we are impeding on the wetlands here because we're trying to make it so that they can bring a truck in and get a boat into the building. But other than that, most of the development is up in the uplands that are on the site.
And toward the east, how far did the building move?
Let's see, this was the approval in 2019. So basically all we did was slid the building up this way so that this corner is sitting on that easement line.
How many feet?
Looks like it's about, am I switching between?
No.
Oh, okay. Looks like it's about 20 feet closer to the building.
So if you kept the same slopes and everything, so you're moving that into the wetlands a little bit, 20 feet more, everything got pushed towards the east, is that right?
This isn't 20 feet. This is probably only about 10 feet where we're impacting the wetlands. So it's right up along here. There's an existing well there. So we just looked at how can we make access into the front of the building better. Plus the town requested a 25-foot fire truck path around the building.
Okay, thank you.
So it's moved this way towards the road.
Good. Other questions or comments?
I think in general, I'm not in favor of waiving the stormwater study, given what Dale has said, and I know that's unfortunate for the applicant, but I just, especially where the building has been moved towards the east, I kind of think it's appropriate to take a look at that.
Okay, Amanda?
I would agree. That was going to be my comment. It doesn't seem like it's going to cause too much harm to the applicant's process, so why not just do it? That way we have the updated numbers.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. Can we limit the, or hours of operation formally? Can we put it in there as a condition of approval that they can only bring in boats and remove boats during a certain period of time of the day?
During construction.
Not for operating the business? Okay, thank you.
Other comments? Ann?
Yeah, well, I don't think that we should change the conditions that were agreed to in 2019 to protect the neighbor from, the light spillage and cutting down. I don't think we should allow that to be changed, but I don't get the impression they're doing that. I think it sounds like he will still have the no lights on that side and the vegetation will not be cut down. On the stormwater, I think it might be a good move to have an update to that because there is a lot of concern about it. And if it's not that difficult, then perhaps that would be a good thing to do.
Okay,
That's the way I would go.
all right, good. Lorraine, any comments?
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay. So, we're at the point of constructing a motion.
Bill looks ambitious over there.
I look ambitious. I didn't know if I
And,
wanted to touch this one. It's my neighborhood.
Actually, you know, I should back up. I'm sorry. I think I misspoke. Well, yeah, I guess let's discuss the waiver, and then I'll get to the findings of fact. Even though they're similar, I think probably it's appropriate to read them again. It's been a couple of years, and a couple of things I think have changed. So regarding the waiver, I think we need to vote on whether we want to grant the waiver, which was requested.
I make a motion that we deny the waiver request.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Discussion on the motion. All those in favor of denying that? Okay, it's unanimous. So we are requiring a analysis of the drainage stormwater. So let me now go through the findings of fact. The first is the utilization of the site. There are some areas of wetland that were previously undocumented, but now are shown on the plan, and a self-verification notification permit from the Army Corps of Engineers is listed as a condition of approval, and that was mentioned earlier. The site is not located on a sand and gravel aquifer. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Traffic circulation and parking. There will be no visitors to the site, and only a few employees will be on the site on an occasional basis. Therefore, there is no need for a pedestrian system. Parking for Yarmouth Boatyard employees is shown on the plan in a parking area near Middle Road. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Excuse me. Stormwater management and erosion control. Stormwater management report was submitted as part of the 2019 application. This report shows there will be no change. This is the 2019. No change in peak flows leaving the site as a result of the additional impervious surface. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met, but I would note there that there will be, in fact, would that have to be a condition of approval or
Yes.
not? Yeah,
Yep.
okay.
I've drafted a
So we'll-
condition of approval, so you could amend the finding
Yeah,
to
let's,
say a condition, proposed condition of approval will address the need for an updated stormwater
yeah,
plan.
okay. Yeah. Christina, you have that, or, okay, so, good. The next item is water, sewer, utilities, and fire protection. There is an on-site well for water supply. The plan has been reviewed and approved by the fire chief. Sewer will be extended from the existing building to the new building. Underground electric will be connected to the new building. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water protection. There will be no indoor or outdoor storage of environmentally harmful products. The new building will be connected to an existing sewer line. The site is not located within the town aquifer protection area. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Floodplain management, site is not located within a floodplain. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Historic and archaeological resources, a letter from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission stating that there are no historic or archaeological resources on the site was submitted as part of the subdivision review. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Exterior lighting. Before I read this, Carla, what we discussed is as has been proposed, correct? Regarding
so
the south side that Dale was
That-
concerned about, okay.
Right, that finding of fact was written after we had the conference
Okay.
call and agreed to no lighting on that side of the building.
Okay, thank you. The site plan shows an appropriate amount of limited shielded lighting on the new building. There is a note on the plan stating there will be no lighting on the southerly side of the building. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Buffering and landscaping. Landscaping was installed along Middle Road following the original approval. Additional plantings are shown on the proposed plan along Middle Road and on the southern boundary line. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Noise. There will be a period of time during the construction phase that may create elevated noise levels compared to normal operation of the development, but will not be permanent noises associated with the development. Anticipated noises that could possibly occur during construction could come from, but are not limited to, equipment noise. It is anticipated that no adverse impact will occur on the surrounding area once the boat storage building is built. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Storage of materials. There will be no dumpster on the site or outside storage of trash or other waste. Based on the findings, above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Capacity of the applicant. Technical ability, the applicant has retained Walsh Engineering to prepare the amended site plan. Financial capacity, the applicant has provided a letter dated February 23rd, 2021 from the Androscoggin Bank stating the applicant has the capacity to finance the project as proposed. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Design and performance standards. The project is not subject to design standards. All right, so any motion to accept the findings of fact as read?
I make a motion that we accept the findings of fact as read
And
And
amended.
amended.
and amended.
Yeah, sorry. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Thank you. All right, so what, Carla, do you have the list of the conditions of approval before we have a motion?
Sure, they're listed on page 14 of my review. There are currently 6 of them, and I think we'd want to add the one about the stormwater.
Okay.
So could do that one right up front. So my proposed language is that the stormwater management plan be updated, reviewed, and approved by the town engineer prior to the beginning of construction.
So that'd be number 7.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
And then the other ones are the standard ones about fees being paid
Yeah.
prior to issuance of a building permit.
I'm on that page, yeah, I see
Okay, do you want me to go through them or no?
the, you think that's necessary? If you,
It-
if you do, go ahead.
Yeah, let's go
Yeah,
through them
okay.
since there has been a lot of
Yeah.
abutter issues. The second condition of approval is stating that the facility is approved for boat storage only. There shall be no boat or engine maintenance or storage of hazardous materials on the site. Number 3, the applicant shall provide a copy of the self-verification notification permit from the Army Corps of Engineers. 4, the project site is within the town's regulated urbanized area and is subject to the town's stormwater management ordinance, Chapter 242. A post-construction stormwater management plan in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 242 is required. Number 5, the expiration of approval, as shown above, shall be listed as a note on the plan. And number 6, the applicant shall provide an as-built plan upon completion of construction. There was one other condition that I was wondering if the board might want to think about, which is to be a little more specific about the size and type of trees to be planted. White pines do grow fast, but they tend to lose their lower branches over time. And I feel like that wouldn't really help Mr. Spugnardi very much in the end. So we might want to specify a different type of evergreen tree be provided, a spruce or such. The board's done that in the past.
I think that's a great idea. If somebody here knows the specifications that would help anyone.
I had kicked around the idea of writing that a revised landscaping plan showing the planting of 6 to 7 foot high spruce trees be planted in the locations as shown on the plan.
I'm good with that. How about everybody else? You okay? Yeah, I think a spruce tree would be much denser buffer.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So that would be 8?
That would be it, yes.
They have stronger root systems too.
Yeah.
They don't grow like pines do.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much, Carla. Is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve for construction of an 11,900 square foot indoor boat storage building on Lot B at 191 Middle Road as shown on Tax Assessor Map R02, Lot 27A in Rural Industrial Zoning District. Applicant owner 199 Middle Road LLC. Subject to the 6, 7, and 8, all 8 conditions of approval as read by Carla.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, Amanda, did you second it? All right, discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? All right, thank you. So unanimous, Christina. All right. Norman and Steve, thank you if you're still there, appreciate it, and everyone that participated.
Thank you.
Dale,
Yes, thank you very much.
Rika and Catherine, thank you. So, does anybody strongly need or desire a break, or can we continue? We good? Okay.
Are we taking a break? The
No.
next item might take a little bit, but
Okay, let's take a short break.
Take a break? Okay. Can we do it 5 to 7 minute break, start by quarter of? Okay, thank you. Mics are on. There we go. I hear the echo now.
There we go.
Thank you, thank you. The next agenda item is number 3. It's a public hearing, site plan review for construction of a 10,280 square foot professional office building on condominium unit 3 at 2 Faraday Drive, as shown on Tax Assessor Map U20, Lot 73, in the Village Center Commercial Zoning District. The owner applicant is Green SIP Construction, represented by Peter Beagle, who is here, licensed landscape architect, Land Design Solutions. Before we start, Carla, any comments you want to make before we
No?
go into this? Okay, thank you. Peter, welcome.
Thank you.
Are you Peter, right?
I am.
Yeah,
I am.
yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Good evening.
Good evening.
So thought I would walk through our project. We have it up here on the screen. This first shot is just a Google Earth image showing the outline in red was the entire parcel, which was before you a number of years ago, showing a multiple development project. The little square in the yellow is the last portion of this project being developed, and that's what we're here before you tonight with a professional office building. The original, this slide up here now is the original master plan subdivision, which was approved. I can't remember or see that date, but I think it was 2016, 2017. Anyway, what this shows is where my little mouse is right here is an existing Casco Systems building. And that was built 2017, 2018. And I have quite a bit of familiarity with the site. I lease office space in that Casco Systems building, so I've been there for 2 years now, so I have a pretty good feel for what's happening on Route 100 and how this building functions. Then the next step after the Casco Systems building was constructed were these 5 multiplex units in the back here, and those have all been sold. They're about all occupied. This unit right here is just finishing up construction. So other than that, everything else is owner occupied and seems to be functioning well. The Casco Systems building is condominium unit 1. This multiplex unit is condominium 2. The red outline is where we're proposing our professional office building, and that's condominium unit 3. Tammy Lane, which, you know, how that got roped into this whole thing, I don't really know, but that's condominium 4. No real changes have been made to that. And then we have the stormwater area over here as a common space, and this part of Faraday Drive, which is our new entrance drive that serves all these areas, is a common space as well. The original approval obtained a stormwater permit for everything but the area in red that we're proposing now. And that all the stormwater for this area went to the stormwater ponds over here in the common area. And that was DEP approved, and there is an existing DEP stormwater permit for that. Let me see here. This is just the without anything built, just showing the various condominium and common areas with our 1.3 acre professional office space condominium unit 3. This is our site layout and materials plan. This is showing our parking area. We're, according to our calculations, we're required to have 65 parking spaces. We have 66. We have our building over here. We have a 2-story building. Under this middle section right here, we have a basement, cellar, which mechanical room, some other services. We have Skillen's nursery over here behind us. We have up here is one of the multiplex buildings. This is really a kind of a flip mirror image of the Casco Systems building or site. Casco Systems building is only 1 story, and we're 2, but it's kind of a mirror image. Slightly smaller parking lot. The benefit to this office building is we have the south-facing sun on our entrance, which will be very nice. Casco Systems over here, we get a little bit of ice buildup on the walk, and it's not quite so great in the wintertime. So that will be a big benefit to this site. This is our grading, drainage, and erosion control plan. I have highlighted in blue the changes made in response to the CV and Mahar peer review. And actually, let me bear with me while I'm gonna flip back to this shot. So I said everything but our site was involved in the stormwater permit, and the stormwater BMP's ponds were over in this area. So knowing that this was happening a year or so ago, when the multiplex project was going through the permitting process, we designed a detention pond to go over in this green space, knowing we were going to have to do something with the stormwater. And we talked about that with DEP, and we actually incorporated and constructed most of that in the multiplex construction, so that we were kind of looking ahead, if you will, and getting prepared for that. So one of the comments from CV Mahar was we show the detention area right up here, and we weren't showing all the information that they would like to see. We have an outlet control structure and some riprap aprons on the inlets and outlets. So we are now showing that here. We're showing little inverts and cleanouts on our under drain, our roof drip line filter under drain. So we've incorporated those into our plan set. This is our utility plan. This little gray rectangle right here is an engineered septic system, because our system is over 2,000 gallons per day. It's probably a little larger than we need, but we wanted to make sure that we had everything we needed, so that you wouldn't ever have to go back and enlarge that system. So it's the plans were submitted in your package, done by Teradyne Engineering. The red outline is the nitrate plume, and there was a hydrologic study done by Mark Sensi, and just to make sure that we were all within our requirements. This project added enough impervious area to the overall project that we tripped the DEP, Site Location and Development Act threshold. So this project is in the queue in DEP, where they will be looking at all aspects of this development. They'll be looking at septic system, stormwater. They'll be looking at the whole project. So this will all have, aside from your peer reviewer at CV Mahar, it will have the DEP eyes looking over it as well. We'll be tying into the utility pole that's in front of our building. We have our transformer over in this location, trying to keep it as much out of view of our building and landscape as possible. We'll tie into the natural gas line that's along the street. All our utilities will be underground. We have a letter from the water district for our domestic and fire suppression water lines. Landscape plan. We've kind of mirrored what was done at the Casco Systems building with street tree plantings along here. These are clump river birch, kind of mimicking the theme in front of Casco. We have some evergreen trees on the ends here, but we have just kind of a large shrub line along the boundary. We didn't want to have anything too heavy there. It's the building's approximately 18 feet from that line, and if you have an office space along that line with a window, and you end up with an evergreen tree 18 feet away, it just rather have some daylight and some view than blocking that. We have a nice little kind of courtyard area in the front here, decorative entrance pavement, some other plantings. The comments, staff comments concerned beefing up of some of the planting in the front. We've expanded a plant bed right here. We've added some benches along this the street island here. Also added a bench over in here for folks who want to come out of the office at lunchtime or whenever and sit around. There's a question as to what we're doing with our mailbox. The existing Casco Systems mailbox is right where I have my cursor. We're in discussion with the post office at the moment as to whether we need to put, we're planning to install a identical mailbox, but it's a question of, do we need to put it beside the existing one, or can we put it on our side of the road? So we'll take that direction from the post office, and whichever place they prefer is what we'd like to do. Photometric plan using the same sort of lighting as the what's used on, which you see existing on Faraday Drive and the Casco Systems building, kind of a gooseneck decorative with a LED downlight fixture. We also have some decorative lights on the building, and we have a couple bollard lights up here by the walk. These next building plans, I'm going to ask Mike Hayes, the building architect with Grant Hayes, to come up if he would, and these next couple slides just walk through the building. Start kind of with the floor space, and if you want to talk about these, Mike, I can click through if you want.
Sure. Mike Hayes, Grant Hayes Associates, Architects. We're in Falmouth.
Welcome.
Thank you. So the building itself, as Peter already indicated, there's two slab-on grade primary structures that are the lease portions of the building that anchor both ends. Then the center portion is mostly common area services, two-story atrium, fire egress stair tower, bathroom, conference rooms, which can be commonly used by any of the leased tenants, as well as support services, mechanical rooms, IT, security, fire sprinkler room, and the fire alarm room. Some of those are also in the basement of the center area, which will also have 4 storage areas for each leased tenant. So they'll have additional storage in the basement area. So the Second floor is, next slide, sir.
All righty, you got it.
The second floor is set up just about exactly the same as the first floor, with the same lease size spaces on both ends, common area in the middle, and the same common amenities in the middle. The roof plane is below that. You'll see it on the elevations, but the two lease structures are two-story with hip roofs, and then the middle common area has a flat roof with a cupola that extends up above the roof line to form kind of a clock tower kind of profile. I want to go on to the elevations. Thank you. So these are the exterior elevations of the buildings. We've tried to keep in mind the Route 100 design guidelines for that. Trying to replicate classic New England style. The two end buildings that you see with the hip roofs have some classic traditional forms that we've given a little bit of a modern nod to. The central part of each of those lease buildings has a different window configuration to give it a little bit of a focal element and create some symmetry on both sides. The middle portion, which is the common area, is recessed in to create that courtyard and draw more focused attention to that as being the main entrance and provide some very strong wayfinding visuals on the site. The center is the main entrance. It has a canopy, and then the cupola that extends above the roof again provides that more focal clock tower kind of old feel. Again, further drawing your eye and attention to that space as being where you enter the building. The exterior materials, the base of the building has a stone base, a darker color, so it feels like it's well-grounded, strong base material. And then above that, we have gray panels that replicate kind of like a granite stone look, but they'll be a solid color. Water table trim above that, and then clapboard siding above it to lighten the building as we go up. So it makes the massing feel a little lighter as we go up. Very strong cornice trim around the top, very traditional New England form. Creates a top or a band, a hat, if you will. And then hip roofs as opposed to gable roofs to decrease the mass and volume of those buildings. The center portion, larger windows to draw the attention to that and create a very light filled atrium area. And again, the cupola sticking up above that to give it a little bit of a modern nod, but still traditional in its shape and form. The windows have been designed to replicate double hung windows, either single, double, or triple in the middle and on the back. We've kept the lighting fairly minimal. The lights are at the entrances of the doors and at the center portions of the triple window bays. And those lights are cylinders that shine up and down, so they're more like sconces that will highlight the facade of the building in those areas. The two canopies, on the lower one on the front and the one at the very top, have basically 4x4 LED recessed lights within the canopy projections that will basically throw some soft light in those areas too to create a focus there. Is a 3D in there too?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is a three-dimensional drawing of what it would look like. So, and that is the architecture.
Okay, thank you. Carla, question for you. Do any design standards apply?
Yes, the Route 100 design standards.
Because on page 14, under findings of fact, under M, design and performance standards, Route 100 is listed as one of the four. and then it says none of the above are applicable to this project.
Oh, well, apologize for that, but
Okay,
if you
all
keep
right.
scrolling, you'll see I
Yeah, well,
actually made findings for
Well,
everything.
based on what I just heard,
Yeah, very much so, compliant
Yeah.
with the
Could-
design standards.
could either you or Peter show, there was a peer review thing about the walkway that you didn't think was necessary. Just point out how people would get, you had,
Yeah.
I thought, a reasonable answer that where they wouldn't have, it was a shorter distance
Yes,
or.
yeah, I neglected to go over that. So these blue arrows right here, so we're talking about not having a sidewalk along these spaces right here. And, you know, I know from the way this building functions, amazingly, most people, people pull in here and the most popular spaces are these middle spaces. And you would be amazed, but more people park in this last row than in this first row. So I don't know why that is, but that's the way it operates. And I don't know if, you know, one of my theories is that that sidewalk is just so kind of close to the building, and I don't know if there's an odd scale or whatever, but you rarely see anybody walking up that sidewalk. And so that's really reason number one. But compounding that is we have very limited snow storage space. So aside from putting a walkway along here that I just can't see anybody getting out of their car and walking on that versus just cutting over to here or really, you know, walking up through the parking lot right to that door. So I don't see anybody using that just from a pedestrian circulation route. And then if we said, well, you know, you never know, let's just put it there, it compounds our snow storage issue because we have very limited space. And this, where you see this light cyan box, is going to be, you know, is a snow storage area. And we have the same thing here. And you have that snow storage area right there. And then we have a catch basin right here. So, you know, we're a little better off because of our southern exposure, but that, you know, you just don't want to plow over a curb and a walk to try to get to the other side of that for your snow storage. And I think, you know, that's secondary to the fact that it's just so quick for everybody to be able to hop onto the sidewalk that goes along the whole face of this building. So I hate to put that walk in that no one's going to use, and that impacts our snow removal process.
How many tenants would you expect
Well,
on the best case?
yeah, why don't you?
The expectation at this point is that there would be 4 tenants.
For?
But some of the 2 larger ones, the 5,000 plus square foot larger rectangles, they could be subdivided, but at this point,
Yeah, it was a lot of
Trying to
parking, a lot
market.
of parking spaces. I just wondered, I know there's a requirement, but, yeah. And the heating is going to be natural gas, right?
I don't know that we're sure. Are we?
Okay.
We're not
All
sure.
right, I asked because one place it said natural gas, another, at the beginning, it said propane. So therefore, you need propane
Yeah,
tanks.
I think that was maybe I picked that up too, maybe in the first page of the staff notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's wrong?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah, okay. So you don't need tanks?
no,
Okay.
no.
All right, and it's, you expect all types of professions potentially from IT to, not medical, but
We have a dental office is what we're thinking.
one, okay.
And then one we called spa, nails, I don't know.
Yeah, so
something.
you would need
Yeah, and
parking
then
spots. Yeah,
professional office space. And we calculated our sewer demand based on those, because some of those uses use more water than a professional office, so we wanted to make sure that we had ourselves covered.
okay, thank you. Other,
Well, people that clean the building will need to take the trash with them.
Okay, they can handle medical waste too?
Yeah, so we know we have some amalgam or whatever it is that comes with the dental office. And So there would be like a Stericycle service. I know they're we anticipate that they would have to have somebody like that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other questions, or comments before? Anyone? Okay. So I will open thank you very much, and we may come back to you in a minute. I'll open the public hearing. Somebody there?
No, yes, there is.
Okay. Anyone in the room? No? We're
No hand up, though.
no hands. Yeah, again, just as a reminder, if you're watching and you want to comment, please raise your hand, and that would show us you're in the queue for the Zoom conference.
Mr. Chairman, just one
Yes.
quick thing. Peter started talking about the snow storage area. I'm not sure where the 25-foot future sidewalk easement would go. I think we have get that somewhere in the standard, so I couldn't see that on the drawings.
Yeah, and I don't have the standards right in front of me, but
Yeah, I can, let me click back to, I have that on,
Because while they're not constructed today, we're trying to reserve an area that we can construct future sidewalks in that whole corridor.
so, right, we have this front, right along here. That,
Yep, thank you.
so, I'm sorry, are there any conflicts, and the standards, I do have on the iPad, but are there any conflicts with the standards, Carla, that you're aware of? Because the sidewalk, I don't believe, is an issue where they're not, where they don't want to do it.
Right. No, I thought it was actually a very complete application. It provided all the information for me to make positive findings throughout, even including the Route 100
Okay,
design standards.
thank you.
we were asking for a waiver. I didn't actually get to that part.
Is a waiver necessary, though? That's what I was getting at. I thought in that location it wasn't. If it is, then obviously we'd have to do it. Bill, well, I'm switching here, but still nobody. So at this time, I will close the public hearing and come back to this issue, I guess, and see where we are.
So, right, so I guess I was assuming that we would need a traffic study waiver request. There was a traffic study done with the original project, and I contacted DOT, told them what we were doing, how many cars we had, what the office use was, and they told me that we weren't tripping a threshold for us to do anything, we were all set. So they had.
Do you have that in writing, or just?
Yeah, no, I actually
Okay.
have that in writing.
Because that seems like that would be useful.
So right here, what I've highlighted in red is the email from Anthony Fontaine with DOT, who said the proposed changes do not require amendment of the permit. Should traffic volume exceed 99 one-way trips at any peak hour, the department will require a traffic analysis and may require the approval of a traffic movement permit. But I see nothing in your current proposal that will trigger that event. And you can see down below where I described what we were proposing.
Okay.
And that comment is based on the current building as drawn with 33 employees.
Yes, yeah, 66 parking spaces, the gross leasable area. Because my concern was the original permit was based on a slightly smaller building with 54 parking spaces. So I wanted to make sure that we were doing more, so I wanted to make sure that we were still all set.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Regarding the sidewalk, Carla, is a waiver necessary?
No,
No.
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. So, Peter, if a waiver's not required for that, was there another waiver? I don't remember.
Well, I thought I needed a waiver for this traffic study.
Well, I'd have to rely on Carla. Is the
Right.
letter, or should we,
Again, it's a judgment call for the board. You can do it as a waiver, or you can just determine that you've been given enough information through the application and through the presentation tonight to say that there was a master plan developed for this area, that a subdivision plan reflecting that was approved by previous planning board, and now this site plan is consistent with what the master plan allowed for. And
and plus incorporating that letter, they think it would
Yes.
be good to have that letter. But what, board, any comments from anyone regarding,
Sounds good to me.
sounds reasonable? Okay.
Big road, it doesn't make me uncomfortable. Does it make you uncomfortable, Carla?
no.
All right, so the sidewalk's good and traffic will deal that way. Were there any others? I don't
No.
remember any others, but, okay. So then I will, let me back up. I hadn't gone through this, after I saw that comment that none of the standards were applicable, I didn't look real hard at the Route 100 standards to see, especially regarding the sidewalk, but I presume that wasn't required. So I would now like to go through the site findings of fact. So let me start with utilization of the site. The proposed development of condominium unit number 3 is as anticipated and shown on the master plan and subdivision approval. There are no environmentally sensitive areas on the site. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Traffic, circulation, and parking, and let me see if we need to amend. There is an existing paved entrance, Faraday Drive, into the development from Route 100. The access to this part of the development will be via 2 access drives from Faraday Drive into the office building's parking areas. There is a sidewalk along the building front to the front door. A Maine Department of Transportation entrance permit was obtained in January 2016. The department did not require an updated permit application be submitted for this phase, and a letter from the applicant will be included that negates the need for further traffic study. Is that good? Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Christine, are you good with that? Thank you. Stormwater management and erosion control. Stormwater management report, including erosion control, was submitted in the application and reviewed by the town engineer. A Maine DEP Site Location of Development Act permit is required, is under review at this time by the Maine Department of Environmental Protection. This review will be, this review by MDEP will be included, will include a stormwater review. Does that, is under review, so is that one of the conditions? I can't remember if that was a condition, the receipt of that.
It is a condition of approval.
Okay, all right,
yep.
thank you.
But the town engineers reviewed it.
Okay.
and said it's fine.
Okay, based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water, sewer, and fire protection. The proposed development will utilize public water for both domestic drinking water and fire protection. There is a letter on file from the Portland Water District indicating capacity to serve the development. A private septic system has been designed that complies with all local and state subsurface waste disposal rules. There will be underground electric cable and telephone data from the utility pole in front of the property. There will also be connection to the natural gas main on Route 100. The building will be sprinkled. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Water protection. The site is located within the town aquifer protection area. There will be no storage or discharge of fuels, chemicals, chemical or industrial waste, biodegradable raw materials, or liquid gaseous or solid materials. The project does involve a sewer disposal system with capacity of 2,000 gallons per day, and the proposed wastewater disposal design is in compliance with all state and local plumbing rules. Based on the materials included in the application, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Floodplain management. The site is not located within a floodplain. There's attachment 6 of the application for a FEMA flood map of the area. We're good with that, Carla? Thank you. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Historic and archaeological resources, a letter dated November 2015 is on file from the Maine Historic Preservation Commission stating there will be no impact on historical or archaeological resources. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Exterior lighting. The exterior lighting will include pole-mounted fixtures in the parking lot and light bollards at the building entrance. The catalog cut sheet show that the fixtures are full cutoff, and the photometric plan provided shows 0 foot candles at the property line. The parking area lighting will be set to turn off when the businesses are closed. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Buffering and landscaping. Street tree plantings are shown on the landscape plan along Route 100 and Faraday Drive. The plantings are a mixture of spruce trees, shrubs, and hydrangeas. There is a proposed landscaping surrounding the building and parking area also. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Noise, the proposed office building use will not cause noise levels that would be a nuisance for neighboring properties. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Storage of materials. There is no proposed outdoor storage of materials. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Capacity of the applicant. Technical ability. The applicant has retained a licensed land surveyor, professional engineer, soil scientist, and landscape architect to prepare plans and the application. Financial capacity. There is a letter on file from Hub Financing indicating willingness to fund up to $2.3 million for the proposed project. Based on the above findings of fact, the board finds the standards of this section have been met. Design and performance standards. The Route 100 design standards have been followed, and based on that information, the board finds the standards of this section have been met.
My apologies to the architect that I did not list him as one of the. It's a really nice building plan.
I should have known better.
We'll amend that to
Okay.
read architect as well.
All right, so Carla or someone, I think we need to read the conditions of approval. Do you have, I'm not on that page, so.
Do we have to accept the findings first?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, we need a motion.
Make a motion to accept the findings of fact as read
And amended.
and amended.
Again. Is there a second?
Second?
Okay, all those in favor? Unanimous, thank you. And for conditions, Carla, again, I've got to change pages, but
They're on page 30.
30,
Yeah.
okay.
They were tricky to find. They're in there.
Well, especially on an iPad.
Yes.
Um,
So there are 8 proposed conditions. Would you like me to read through them?
Could you please? Thank you.
The first one is that the draft condominium document shall be reviewed and approved by the town attorney prior to the pre-construction conference. Number 2, a pre-construction conference shall be held prior to the start of construction. 3, a performance guarantee in an amount and form acceptable to the town manager will be required prior to the pre-construction conference. Number 4, all clearing limits shall be flagged and approved by the peer review engineer prior to the pre-construction conference. Number 5, a blasting permit, if required, shall be obtained from the code enforcement officer. Number 6, all legal and technical review fees shall be paid to the town prior to the pre-construction conference. Number 7, any required local, state, or federal permit shall be submitted to the town planner prior to the pre-construction conference. And number 8, an electronic copy of the as-built plans shall be submitted to the town planner prior to the release of any remaining inspection fees.
Thank you very much. Okay, any further comments or questions before
I have
we
a
entertain?
question.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question on the proposed conditions of approval. And this is just, the condominium documents, is there a separate condominium document for each of the phases, shall we call them? Is that, there were a lot of them.
Yes, there
in this
were.
package.
So the overall development,
Mhm.
for some reason, I'm still not clear on why it was done this way, showed the different, we call them phases, as condominium units. So there was an overall homeowner, not homeowners, but bylaws for that.
Okay.
And now they are proposing that these units that will be leased will be sold and that there will be condominium documents for that as well. Do I have that correct?
Is that,
Hi, I'm Jim Schmidt. I'm the project manager for the development generally. So yes, what Carla said is absolutely true. There was an overall condominium declaration that just dealt with the 4 units, the 4 lots. Unit 1, which is Casco Systems, was sold directly to them. They're only subject to the master association, if you would. The second unit was the 20 townhouse units. They have their own condominium declaration and association. So this building would be similar to that. It would have its own declaration and would be an association just for that building. So they would share the common area expense of the building.
Okay.
But they would individually own the units,
They
the leasing units, for lack of a better word.
They would own the units, like
Yes.
the dentist would own his unit.
Like the dentist, yeah, whatever, yeah, whoever.
Good.
That's, yes.
Are other questions or comments before we entertain a motion?
I make a motion that we approve for construction a 10,280 square foot professional office building on condominium unit 3 at 2 Faraday Drive as shown on Tax Assessor Map U20 Lot 73 in the Village Center Commercial Zoning District. Owner applicant Green SIP Construction, Inc.
Subject to the conditions of approval?
Subject to the conditions of approval as read by Carla, which are numbered 1 through 8.
I second it.
Did I hear a second?
I second it.
You did, okay. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good night. And the item number 4 is a public hearing for a recommendation to the town council on an amendment to section 31576C demolition permits to add that the Historical Society shall be contacted upon submission of an application. I think this is fairly, let me go to that, fairly straightforward. I would like to, I don't think we have anybody that's going to formally discuss this, right? Or do we?
I think you just described it. It's more of a housekeeping exercise than anything, and that's why it's here before you. The Historical Society requested it be added to the ordinance.
All right, thank you. I thought what I could do is just read the one, paragraph C, which regards demolition permits. So it will read, the last sentence will be the change. The entire paragraph reads, the fee for a permit for the demolition of a building or structure shall be established by order of the town council. No permit shall be issued until notice of the application has been posted to the town office for at least 10 days. And the new sentence at the end now reads, the Historical Society will be contacted upon submission of application. So is there any, yeah, Jason?
Is a historical society a government body? I mean, do they have any authority?
501c nonprofit.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically occupy the building that'll be at the library, and no, they're not connected to the town as a department, but function as its, keeper of all historical records. So the council felt there was no real issue with this. This will go back to them with a recommendation, and we have been doing it probably, I don't know, for 6 months now, as a matter of courtesy at their request. Bill Longley has been contacting them every time we've had a demolition permit come in.
So it regards any building, not necessarily a historical building, just.
They'll make the call if it's worth going out, taking some photos, or contacting the owner for permission. We have no connection with that.
Yeah.
And this doesn't create a slippery slope of having to contact others for town matters that really aren't town matters?
Under a demolition permit?
I guess that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they have, insurance for their board of directors. We basically made sure they had, we were not getting involved in mandating anybody delay anything. It's still going to happen within 10 days. They just make the courtesy call. We'd like to take a few photos if you're okay, and they go down and take some photos. And it would be, probably one in, I don't know, several hundred applications. But I think it was more of a safety net so that they felt like some historical buildings, somebody may not know of the building has some historical value, that they would at least get in there and have the opportunity to take some photos.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, at this point, I'd like to open the public hearing and check with the town manager to see if anybody's queued up that wants to make a comment.
We lost everybody.
We lost everyone in the room. Could be somebody on the Zoom if there were
If
no.
I have a question before we vote.
All
on
right,
it.
so
It talks about the demolition. Since I just wrote the book on taverns, a tavern, Blanchard Tavern was moved from out off 100 down to on the ocean front. This is only for demolition. Would that be, they need a permit to move it too? Would that be, it would be nice if they had a photo before they moved it in its original condition, before they put it and added onto it at another location. Is that, I think that would fall under this anyway?
I believe it would, Bill, and I think as a matter of courtesy, we would reach out to the Historical Society. There'd be enough interest in that happening anyway, well ahead of time.
Yeah.
After having moved the Historical Society and know how many months of coordination.
I see
it
they're
took.
doing stuff on it too today.
Believe it or not, in my lifetime, it may open. So it's been a lifetime achievement award, I will tell you.
All right, thank you.
Bill, there's still no hands. Okay, at this time, I'll close the public hearing and then come
Okay,
back
thank
to the
you.
board.
Yeah, I just have one comment. Isn't it actually the Cumberland Historical Society?
Yes.
So maybe we should call it that in the change here.
All right, so in the motion, it'll have to be as amended. Any other questions or comments before we entertain the motion? Okay, this is no findings of fact to read, so, all right.
I'll make a motion to recommend to the town council an amendment on section 315-76C, demolition permits, to add that the Chamberlain Historical Society shall be contacted upon submission of an application, and the verbiage will be as read by Paul with the addition of Cumberland in front of Historical Society.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Second, Lorraine, seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of the recommendation? Thank you, unanimous. Thank you. So the next item is new business or administrative matters. Yeah, Jason?
Do you have any?
I don't.
I do have something, if I could have a few moments, and I'll read this and then maybe more discussion. What prompted me to write this up was discussion with the school board recently, and I'm sure all of us have had comments in the past about the growth in town and sort of, well, you're the planning board, it's sort of your fault. So that was sort of one of the comments that I got in a recent exchange, and so I never sort of put this in one place, but I did in this email, and I thought I would read it. I thought about editing it, but I'm not going to. I'll just read it as I wrote it back, and then I'll comment more at the end. So it reads, like you, my assumption when joining the planning board was to help plan and shape and control the town's future. After all, it is right there in the name, planning. I can tell you, like I'm sure you know too well, things are different from the inside. The reality of a planning board is very little authority to plan. The planning board is 95% judicial. We try to weed through all the ordinance and simply make sure the rules are followed, ordinance that change often for various reasons and interests. If anything, I am probably one of the ones that sometimes tries to stretch the rules in favor of slowing development, and I have often dissented. But there is almost no tool to slow development. I've talked with our state rep, who was also on the planning board, as well as Bill Shane and others, and spent lots of time thinking about growth at a high level. There are a few punchlines when you weed through it all, one of which is if your town is not growing, even if it is neutral, it is dying. Negative growth results in lower property values. Most people would claim to not want growth, but they also don't want lower property values. Even if you have a geography that becomes saturated, either physically or by way of imposed limitations, if there is no more new building and if the area is still desirable, then property values, cost to buyers, will still go up, maybe even at a greater rate because people still want to go there. I think I alluded to the rest of this last year in one of my comments. On the other side, I think we are lucky to have Bill Shane, but the town manager of any town has a job to do, and people want new and better for their town, which costs money, so the town manager must welcome growth, or his budget is not manageable, or at least improvements will be difficult. And eventually, with inflation, even maintaining what you have becomes impossible without new revenue growth. So any town manager that says they want to squelch growth is, well, maybe not serving the town well. The punchline is, if you really want to stop growth, simply make your town undesirable and be willing to pay a greater portion of the total bill, taxes. When there are no new taxpayers and there is inflation and maintenance and costs, etc. And by the way, since your town is now undesirable, your property values will drop. I realize this is a silly premise to do purposefully and should not be our goal. I'm sure smarter people than me came to understand this much quicker, but it has taken me a couple of years in being on the inside to fully appreciate the forces in play. One other thing that is an unrelenting force is the money involved in developing desirable areas. Inherently, the motivation, money, of a developer is almost always going to win in the long term over people or organizations that resist what they are doing. People get exhausted with an often moral fight, but the desire for profit rarely seems to wane. So development seems always to find a way. Legally, too, I have learned that even if we tightened up dramatically the building permits allowed, we could get into a legal battle with developers since they have a right to develop their land within the ordinance. So we are only one developer with deep pockets away from having to remove any of those limits after substantial legal costs, I would assume. The only true effective and realistic way I can see to slow growth is increasing the minimum lot size. That would be nearly impossible to do because even people that love their privacy now eventually someday want to cash out, meaning their now empty land will soon have houses on them. By Southern Maine standards, we have large minimum lots in RR1 and RR2. The GP-COG report that the town did a couple years ago was also very interesting. The punchline to that was that our bulging schools were not caused by new houses in recent years, but were caused by Grandma and Grandpa finally selling and those houses being backfilled with young families with kids. So if we really want to help the bulging schools, we should help Grandma and Grandpa stay put better. In the end, the only people that can afford to fully preserve their privacy and help protect what they love and truly stop growth are very rich people that buy big ranches or similar somewhere, but the schools on that ranch are probably not as good, nor the community feel. I am in favor of trying to slow the growth curve, because bubbles aren't good, and the correction from that will be more painful. But how do you slow all of the above in a controlled manner? I have come full circle now. You can see I have put some thought into this little problem. I do think maybe the planning board should change their name. So that's what I wrote to them. And out of that, and after being on this board for the last couple of years, I think it might be relevant, and I wanted to ask Bill about updating the GP-COG report. I think last time we did that, it was at no cost. Is that right? Yeah. I would be in favor of that. And then the other part of this, I get that comment a lot about being on this board. I'm sure you guys have heard it. You're on the planning board. Schools are bulging. I would be in favor of sort of trying to tie together a statement that helps people understand all the various things in play. Something similar to this. I don't know if anybody else would be in favor of that, and encompassing the various historical things like the GP-COG report. And then the other part, I know a couple of years ago we did a survey about lot size, and I can't imagine it would happen, but I think a survey asking people about increasing lot size would be interesting and would put the onus back on the residents in some way. But I think it would be important if you were going to offer that question to them about increasing lot size, because that's really the only way that you could actually control growth, is provide to them what that means historically for like the last 5 years. If you did this, if you went back 5 years and say lot sizes were instead not 4 acres, they were 6 acres, and not 2 and they were 4, what that would mean to the average resident as far as increased taxes and that sort of thing. So I'd be interested to hear or see what most people would say to that, and I suspect that the answer would come back to, yeah, we're doing okay.
I think when the town first increased their lot sizes, and they have some of the largest lot sizes in the greater Portland area, they had to do it not based on a survey, but based on a study that related to the ability to process wastewater on lots and the soil types. And that's why if you drive down Range Road, on one side of the street you'll see RR2, the other side you'll see RR1, primarily because of the difference in the soil types. That study barely passed the straight face test, and I would challenge you that it really, I don't think it did. But it was about almost as thick as the ordinance and went through every single area of town, and that's how we came up with the zoning for 2 acres versus 4 acres. Technology has changed and improved dramatically. I think you could get down to 1/4 acre lots if you really wanted to. I mean, that's how much technology has streamed ahead of where we were when we did that original study. I think it was back in the 80s or late 70s. I think you can still ask those questions. I think we want to get back into, and it probably would take a more technical analysis than GPCOG has the ability to give us for nothing, because they really took data from Bill Longley, they took housing turnover studies from the real estate markets, and put together a lot of pretty interesting data, and it was very helpful. But now taking both of those, and when we did our growth study and our growth impact ordinances, those were all based on a pretty substantial study that reported back to you and said, this is what the town looks like today. And that study was done a long time ago. That was probably, I don't know, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, 1990s. So it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to ask the council to, come back and let's do another look, because things are changing. Neighborhoods are turning over. What does that next cycle look like, and when can we predict it? The schools failed miserably at projecting population growth, and that wasn't on them. They basically hired these consultants to go out and look where we were heading, and we plateaued. We plateaued right around 2000 when we were supposed to crash and burn right down to 16.5. And that's why they shed all the school properties, because they were heading for a place where school population numbers were going to go down dramatically. And they never really did. They dropped just below 2,000 and then kind of stabilized and came back. I've said very often, it wasn't too long ago, 15 years or so ago, our school population was about 2,400. We're barely, pushing about 2,100 now, or pretty close to that. So we have changed. We've kind of gone through that cycle and curve, and maybe it would behoove us now to take a breath and say, where are we heading, and who can help us with that? It's going to be somebody like a Market Decisions, Planning Decisions, that type of company that's no longer around, but there are other spin-offs of that today that we could look at. And that's, I don't think that's a bad idea at all, Jason. I think it would be helpful to get you into that planning mode, if you will, instead of the application processing mode, because it is important to sit back and take a breath and plan sometimes and say, okay, where are we heading, and do our growth ordinances line up with that? So be happy to bring that message back to the council.
I think it's important to realize that like you said, the school can't project, and you said we're like 2,200 or 2,100. Just this in the past year, 6 children under 5 have moved into Friar Lane.
Shut that road down, man.
So
shut it down, Bill.
But I think that might be happening in other areas of town, and we
It's
don't know that.
happening all over town.
And we got to look at that to find out, because they're already talking about, hey, we got to tear down the Mabel Wilson School and build a new school. You already hear those rumblings, so.
And Chuck Lawton talked about that in the last study we did prior to the GPCOG study. He basically said, your growth is going to come in turnover of existing housing, and he was right on the money.
That's what's happening.
Right on the money. So it's what's happening. The neighborhoods are turning over. We all said at 2007 when the market crashed, we're not moving anywhere because we're not losing this value. And that value came back, and it's just, there's less than a handful of houses in this community right now for sale. I think it's less than 3. So.
I've had 2 people knock on my door saying, we'll buy or pay cash for your house. It's not even for sale.
Well, my wife was one of them, so. We want you out of
That's
town.
because it's all fixed up, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And yet, on our street, there's, I think there's 5 or 7 children now.
Yeah.
If you count the one house that's right next to us. When my kids were little, there were 17 kids on the street. So.
There were 100 in my neighborhood on Crossing Brook, 100. The school bus would come in empty and leave full, one school bus. And now there's probably less than half of that. The last study that Jason referred to showed that only 1 in 4 homes had children in them, and this was less than 5 or 6 years ago. I would tell you now it's probably closer to 30, pushing 35 to 40%, because of that turnover is actually seeing a lot of younger age children. Our growth has been in the younger ages. Some of these classes are going to be very large, and the bubbles you talked about, if we don't start planning for them now, are going to be, upon us, and you're going to see portable city. You're going to see 4 more portables on the school campus this summer.
So, Bill, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
It would seem like a obviously I'm retired and on, not a fixed income, depending on the market. But my taxes have almost doubled since we moved here, which if it weren't for several successes, we'd have to move. And we have a large house, we have 10 acres, and we'd sell a house to people maybe with 3 or 4 kids. Who knows if people have that many kids anymore. So, I mean, that's an issue. Taxes are an issue if you're on a fixed income. How do you live in Cumberland? So we have friends at church who are moving way north, way west, way out. They just can't afford it. So that's a problem. I don't know, not being an attorney, I don't know legally a lot of what Jason said. I don't know that anybody could do it. Maybe, I mean, you'd know better. It seems to me that the growth numbers at the last presentation you did, we've never met the number of new homes. So now it's back to what Jason did mention, the turnover, rather than new homes. And it seems like we've gone quite a few months until maybe just recently with, not much, maybe the single homes, but not subdivisions. When we moved here, when we were looking for land, there was a moratorium. I retired from the Navy. We came where we bought a piece of land that somebody wanted to merge with North Yarmouth land, and there was a moratorium. That was 98, 99. And I asked Steve Moriarty about that. I guess the council can do it, have a moratorium on subdivisions. I don't know about single homes. I don't quite share the urgency or the opinions that Jason has about growth. I do think it's not a trivial thing to say that if you're successful, if you do things right, you're going to attract people. And do you want to attract only people that are making $200,000 to $300,000 a year? I mean, we talked about low income, and of course Ocean View is a big addition if that continues. But I don't know. I think it's way more complicated than to think that, I agree. The name planning may be a little inappropriate, but I don't know. I think managing what we have managed and doing it the right way is more important to me than trying to tell people they can't move here. I've lived all over the world, and I've lived in places that grew ridiculously, and I would never want to go back there. A place in Maryland that we moved from, but here I think everybody, you're all doing a great job. So maybe it's something we should address, but I just don't. I'm not alarmed by what I see at all. I'm pretty optimistic and encouraged by how well things are going. And this boom is going to change. We're going to, I'm not good at predicting anything, but my guess is we're going to have a down cycle just like we have up cycles. I think people have fewer children, which is going to eventually catch up, maybe not right away. I don't know how long that's going to take, but the fertility issue is, people having many, we have three kids. That's pretty, I don't know anybody else that has 3 kids. You have 3? Now I do.
But Paul, look.
So anyway.
Look where the community is. We have over 1,000 acres of open space. 70% of the land that's available that's the biggest land that we have in the RR1 and RR2,
Right.
now is protected by a conservation subdivision that requires 50% of that land to be left in a conservation. That's huge. That all by itself, to me, was a slow the bus down a little bit. And honestly, it worked pretty well because I really believe, look at how many applications you've had in front of you in the last 18 months that have been really more than 10 and 15 lot subdivisions. They've been fairly small and fairly spread out for the most part. So when I look at the growth, I agree. We can't fix turnover. I can't basically say this house only is allowed 1 child and this maybe 2, and we'll mix it up. But we've addressed a lot of things. We addressed the transitional housing. We had none 15 years ago. And now we have 100 units of apartments that are available for people that are moving to town or downsizing or in a process of some type of family issue that, they need a place to go. And we've provided so many things that our comprehensive plan looked at, and Carla worked tirelessly on that, we look at it and we kind of smile and say, we did what we thought we wanted to do. And looking forward at the next comprehensive plan and the things that Jason talked about, those are all basically the foundation that comp plans are built on. You get your data, you get your information, you look at it and you say, all right, is this the direction we're going and want to go? And then you basically start making those plans through the comprehensive planning process, and you would all be intimately involved with that. And that really sets the mark. The comprehensive plan isn't as judicial as this body is, but it sets the foundation for how your planning and your codes are set up. So it really does give you a lot more latitude, because you can always say, well, is it consistent with the comprehensive plan? And if it's not, then you always have that as a shield, if you will. So,
But it gives you the vision. Like, look
and it
at-
gives you such a
look at the-
vision.
Look at the horse farm on Greeley Road that we made
Oh.
sure we kept looking like that,
Right.
Right, right.
'Cause we
So
wanted
don't
that
beat
look.
yourself up too bad on some of the gross stuff. Some of this stuff is going to happen regardless of what we can do. But I think we are set up in much better position than many of our towns around us. We basically are one of the most desirables, I think the most desirable community in Maine to live in. We are the safest community. We are the most educated community, all things that are backed up by facts. We have the best school system. To me, I don't know what more you would want as a family to where do I want to raise a family and grow old. And the difficult part is it's not just Cumberland that it's difficult to stay in. It's everywhere around us it's difficult. You sell your house for a windfall of profit, where are you moving to? Unless you're moving way out of state, south somewhere, or way up north, you're not going to be staying in you're not moving to Freeport, you're not moving to Yarmouth or Falmouth. It's the same issue we're all faced with, and this is what Vail talks about a lot, is that we almost need a regional planning board so we can all be talking about the same type of language. And those things may come in time, but right now I think the best you can do is Carla and I work together, and she'll come back to you with kind of a statement that you might want to send to the council to say, hey, here are some tools we could use right now that we don't have, and it would be helpful for us, in reviewing these applications, if we're doing the right thing. Because I don't want you feeling like you're flying blind or that you're not being supported here, because those things are good tools for the next thing, and we'll use it for the next comprehensive plan. So
I don't know how we get the word out that the planning board can't say, you can't do this or you can't do
no,
that.
I like that it's the way
yeah.
that they stay away from the council that way.
Works out fine.
Well, I also think, and I'm just going to chime in as probably one of the newer residents sitting here, is that, it's not like we have standing room only at our planning board meetings or standing room only on the Zooms. And it's the same thing for the town council. So those same people that are complaining about growth are not showing up into the process where they have a voice. And so I'm with you. I've lived in a lot of places. Maryland, 270 was a 4-lane highway. It's now 8 lanes on either side. It's crazy where you see in other areas. And so this is very much a desirable place to live. But I think, I agree, Jason, it's kind of that circular place that you get into. We need growth, right? Because we have to sustain what we want. We want to keep our taxes down. But how do you do it and do it in, well, yeah, okay.
We've left that.
We left that train has left the station, right? But I think that I think the comprehensive plan, is something that we need to be encouraging people to read and get involved in and understand, and then understand how they can be a voice in the process rather than just, costing you in, Hannaford's and going, Jason, why are you approving so many developments? It really isn't about that. It's about the process and where were you when this was written, right? That's how you start impacting what's going on in your community is by getting involved. And it's really easy to sit and complain to the people that are sitting right here because they think, okay, well then I've pushed it on you. It's now your problem. I don't have to deal with it. But I think as a community, we're all responsible for what's going on in our community. So, sorry, I get off my
That's good.
soapbox.
Thank you.
That's why I joined the planning board, because I'm like, I'm gonna be part of this.
Don't misinterpret my letter. It was more or less, I'd never put it in one place, and what prompted me to write it was kind of like, you know, it's your fault, the schools are bulging. And so I'd never gone through that. And the point isn't that I want to limit growth. The point is that if you live in such a great area, limiting growth is nearly impossible.
Exactly.
And because of all these factors. And so
It's a great letter.
I think
Nice letter.
Yeah.
it feels bad when people point the finger at the planning board and say the schools are your fault, and we really have no ability, almost no ability to affect that.
Blame it on the council.
Okay. So, anyway.
Or blame it on the staff.
But that DPCOG report from 2 years ago, I found super helpful, and did really make some pretty strong conclusions about the school growth. And maybe some of the things that you're mentioning are larger scale and further looking, but I think that report in itself, just having that updated might be helpful, especially since we've got a new building upon us, and just to justify, yes, that still makes a lot of sense.
Well, also, was that ever put on the town website? Okay,
was.
because I looked for it a while ago, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, it's been on there for a while, but I'll get the link back out to you, and we've
Okay, that
changed
would
things
be
so
great.
many times, like, I would say that could be a broken link, but it was posted pretty shortly after Jason and I talked, so I'll get that out to you so you all have it, and then we'll, think about, working with Carla and putting something together that you'd like to send to the council, because I think it's important, I really do, and I think, now's the right time.
Well, and part of the comprehensive plan, so I know we recently did the communications survey, but part of that comprehensive plan, there was a survey at one point where the community.
Huge survey.
Yeah, and really they responded, they wanted more growth, not necessarily in housing, but, they wanted a coffee shop, they wanted a little mom and pop market. So there were things that the community was desiring that were commercial based that would actually provide more of a tax revenue than more homes would, but we don't really have a place for it, or if we do, it's not where people want it, which is right in the middle of town, right? They want it right where they can walk to it, so maybe it's time to do another, survey.
And that's the precursor to update to the comp plan, a survey. It really is, just to get where the community is and, figure it out, because this community has basically, 50% of us didn't live here 10 years ago. So it's a very different, every decade, it does change.
I keep coming back.
I know, we can't keep you away, Bill. We can't keep you away. Keep sending people to your house to see if you want to sell. I don't know what's happening.
So I, before we end, I have to make one comment, that before this meeting started, Jason looked over at me and said, "This should be a pretty short meeting tonight." And I said, "Oh, you just did it." So, is there a motion?
I move that we adjourn.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
And thank you, Jason. I really,
Yeah.
that's a great.